and welcome to the show, and we appreciate you coming on. For those that are listening, this is State Representative Brent Money, so we appreciate you coming on, and to kind of kick the show off every time, we just kind of have a little bit of small talk to start. So are you a Cowboys fan, sports fan?
I'm a huge Cowboys fan.
Okay.
I've told a lot of people I've got to be the biggest Cowboy fan in the state legislature. It's been a rough go for the past 30 years, but I still hang in there. There's not, I mean, I don't miss a game. I basically don't miss a play. I mean, if the Cowboys are on, I watch, and yeah, it's hard to maintain belief sometimes, but yeah, I'm a huge, really all Dallas sports fan.
Nice. Well, we are both in Team Tank at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to change. I think it's probably going to be.
If you don't have a shot, you don't have a shot. I mean, all the Eagles have to do is win one more. So
yeah.
But you're telling me there is some chance, so I may just kind of keep my hopes up.
That's like we said on the last pod. Like, there is a chance, but the chance involves the Eagles continuing.
There's a chance.
Yeah. Our chance, unfortunately, involves the Eagles continuing to stink, and I've seen it once before with them, and I hate the Eagles, but
yeah,
I just think that, man, maybe just sit Dak. Let's just not get him hurt. Once there's no chance at all. I know there's like a worry. He's getting a little bit older, and I just don't want him to get hurt, because if he's hurt, then there is no opportunity at all for us to win in the future.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. They're going to go out and win the next 3 games.
Okay, and, you heard it here first.
And not make the playoffs.
Yeah,
and anyway,
we are what 6-1 right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, what we need to do, because we only have 3 games left.
Yeah,
so
6-7.
6-7-1.
Oh,
of course.
Don't even.
Yeah, you have kids too, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So we need to win 2 more. We need to lose 1 more and do the most Cowboys thing ever and go 8-1.
That's right.
The most mediocre record you could have.
Yeah. And I'm over it. I'm kind of like, I know I'm a big fan too. My dad was a fan, and he watched all the way through the 90s, and I remember watching them in the church sanctuary win the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Where they blocked out the ads or whatever. But I just get so frustrated, because it's like, we're this close, but we're really not. It doesn't feel like we're that close.
No, the Cowboys are not a well-run organization. That's the problem.
Yes.
Is they have good players from time to time. They'll have a good scheme from time to time. But what they do does not make sense. Successful sports teams have someone running the sports that is just maniacally focused on excellence all the time.
It's fair.
And the Cowboys do not have that. They have an owner who's really good at a lot of different things. And he's better than, the average most person as far as the GMing. But you can't have that. You can't go out and hire a defensive coordinator and give him to your head coach, especially when that defensive coordinator runs a completely different scheme than all the players that you've been acquiring for the past 5 years.
And wasn't very good to begin with.
Yeah, but even if you think he's great, you have players that are good at man-to-man and blitzing, and he doesn't believe in the blitz or man-to-man. What are you doing?
Right.
So you just have to have an organization that has beliefs and says, this is what we believe in. This is what we're going to do. We're going to build around these concepts and hire people and draft people and acquire players that go toward that. And Cowboys don't have it.
Well, while we're on Dallas sports, the Mavericks, they believe that defense wins championships, and they trade the best player on the whole planet. We're not going to get into that rant right now. Okay. I promised Clint that I would stop talking about that. But did you watch the NBA Cup?
I have not watched any meaningful basketball since February 2nd, 2025.
A man after my own heart.
I mean, and before that, I basically didn't miss a Mavericks game at all.
I'm sorry, Clint.
I mean,
it's going to get talked about today.
It completely gutted my basketball soul, and I haven't recovered.
To be quite honest, I think it was like a Tuesday or a Thursday that it happened, and I came in here and I couldn't hardly talk, because it was on the list of things to talk about.
It was a Sunday, wasn't it? It was like a Saturday night. Wake up Sunday morning trying to go to church.
I was going to say, I think we recorded the next day.
Oh, man.
You were
See,
distraught.
I was so upset.
Yeah.
Almost in tears. That's how big of a Mav fan I am. I just
Yeah.
felt so disrespected.
Yeah.
And now that we have, he's gone. We're not even going to speak his name. Now that he's gone, I just think that like we have to. You're stuck with Davis. Even if you trade him, you're still not going to get back what you lost.
No, you got to trade him.
If you keep him though, see, I'm always the optimistic sports fan because see, I want to win the championship this year.
No.
I know it's not feasible.
Yeah.
I realize that my homership is unreasonable.
Yeah.
But like, either go for it or trade everybody. But we're not going to trade Cooper Flag, and we're not going to get rid of Kyrie.
No,
So,
you trade everybody who's 29 and older, and you say we're going to get assets that are going to be good when Cooper is good. Cooper's good now.
Yeah,
he's going to be elite in 4 or 5 years. We need players that are going to be good when he's elite. So,
well, Mr. Money, I wish I could agree with
man,
you.
I would love. I mean, we should do a whole like just sports podcast. Like I'll go.
We joke. We always say we'll get on a rant and talk about it for a few minutes, and then we'll say we're not a sports podcast.
Yeah.
we try not to get too deep in the analysis.
Hold on, we're having some audio issues. I'll fix it real quick.
Like we said, whenever Notre Dame was complaining about not getting in, I was like, "You beat 20 and 22 or 24. What was it? Lost to 10 and 16.
Yeah, you're not a top 15 team.
You're not.
Yeah,
and to a bunch of people disagree with this too, but neither are the Longhorns.
Yeah,
I'm not sad they didn't get in. I mean, I'm sad they didn't get in.
Yeah,
but did they deserve to be in? No.
But and I think the Longhorns in Alabama, to me, are basically in the same situation. Alabama didn't deserve to get in either, but if they did, I think the Longhorns did.
Yeah.
But, Miami lost to SMU and Louisville.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, didn't beat anybody really of note, but just because they had 2 losses instead of 3, they get in.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
Have you filled out a bracket?
No.
You're a bracket person. We do it in our family. We all fill out a bracket, and I give the kids $5 a win.
Oh, okay.
And if they get all of them, that equates to like $50. But if they do a complete bracket, I give them $100, and it's like some extra Christmas spending money after the holidays.
Interesting. Okay.
So
yeah,
we have some interesting choices because my kids range in age from 5 to 17. So the 5 and 6 year olds, they one of them has Tulane going all the way.
Okay.
But hey, it could happen.
There's a chance.
There's a chance. It's a very small one.
Telling me there's a chance. I wonder what that payout would be if you put $5 on them.
I don't know.
I'm not a gambler guy, but
Is the sound thing over there working?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. It was, bro. What happened?
I don't know.
All right, I'll fix it.
Okay. Do you follow any other college sports? So I'm a volleyball coach. Do you happen to follow any of the college volleyball stuff?
I do not
that's just happened?
follow college volleyball. I do enjoy playing volleyball.
Okay.
I'm 47, so I mean, volleyball had a day back in the 90s.
Okay.
And I played a ton of volleyball.
Nice.
And so I can still get out there with my kids and have enough muscle memory to kind of, still hang in there. I know that Nebraska had a really good team for a while.
Yeah.
But I don't really follow it.
Yeah, they got beat by A&M this past week. So hopefully A&M and then Pitt. I'm a big Pittsburgh fan, so in volleyball anyways, not any other sport. But indirectly, I know one of the players. I taught one of their cousins, so it's like I root for that team. Yeah. Where'd you graduate college from?
What is now East Texas A&M.
Okay, so I was curious if you were an Aggie or not.
No.
But then, so let's while he's fixing that sound, let's kind of hold on. Hopefully he fixed it. Oh, did it work? Okay. Whatever you switched, it went to 0 audio. Sorry about that. We'll get it edited out of the actual podcast, but the live, they're having some issues on it.
Okay.
So like what, let's talk. Sorry, that kind of threw me off a little bit there.
That's all right.
But yeah, I am a Cowboys fan, Mavericks fan. We're not big Stars fans, but we do like 30 seconds on the Stars every once in a while.
I'm a big Stars fan.
Yeah, we've also talked about how like we really enjoy going to the live ones.
Yeah. To
a live game, but watching it on TV, it's kind of tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not for me personally. And then, so I was telling Clint the other day, we both have lots of kids, and I know you have a few kids. I was going to the grocery store to pick up my groceries, and I'm watching these people come in and out. I'm trying to figure out exactly what is going on at the Walmart grocery pickup, and I just got this really weird feeling that I needed to go out and help this person. Mm-hmm. So it got me thinking, like, so I got out, went and helped the person. So it got, like, you don't ever see anybody really get out and help them anymore. So I was asking him, I'm like, when you do grocery pickup, do you go help them? And he didn't really ever respond to it too much. But with all the kids that I have 3 and he has 6. I don't know exactly how many. You have 5 kids. So do you get out and help whenever you go to grocery pickup?
Well, I would say I don't do grocery pickup often. That my wife usually does most of the grocery pickup. But I would say no. The few times I've done it, I kind of just sit there and let them do their thing.
So the first time I did it, I thought you were supposed to tip, right? So I went in and I tried to tip the guy, and he was like, no, you don't tip. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh. He was like, no, it's just a service that you pay for. And I was like, man, I did not know that you weren't supposed to tip. And then now these teenagers are coming in and out, dropping off my groceries. I kind of need it to be in a certain way, so I carry it in the right way, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So I can't not get out and help.
What do you mean carry it in a certain way?
So we have a
the only way a
expedition.
man carries groceries in
all
is
at once.
all at once.
Okay.
All at once.
So I've
That's the test of manhood, right?
I don't generally disagree with you.
Teaching my boys the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But hold on, hear me out on this, okay? Because you're both correct, and I would normally abide by that. But the last time I did that, I went to pick up one, and one broke right here, and it was a glass bottle, and it was a very important glass bottle. If you get what I'm putting down there, and so as I'm carrying it in, I'm like, I can't have that. I can't have that happen again. That was embarrassing. Then I had to clean it all up. So we brought these they go in the back of our SUV, and they're like dividers. So there's a handle on each side. You can fit a ton of bags in there, most of what I would carry. So I just carry those in and then set them on the counter. And then when they're empty, I carry them right back out. So that's what I do.
We do delivery. I got nothing. I got nothing for pickup. Although we've done pickup before, and I do agree. It's a little awkward. It's like you show up and you just raise the back, and this kid's like putting your groceries in, and you feel like I should get out and go help him. But we just do delivery. It comes to the house. I haven't set foot in a Walmart in a while. Mm-hmm. Of been going to HEB. I've been enjoying me some HEB. I'll say this. Of course, the Rockwall HEB has its own Facebook group, and now Roy City's getting one, so I'm real happy about that. But few things in life are better than an HEB butter tortilla that you put in the microwave for about 10 seconds.
Preach.
Few things are better than that. So, yeah, I've been going to the HEB. It's been great. It's crowded. It's like a Chick-fil-A because it's crowded as all get out, but you can still get in there, get your groceries, get checked out, and get on out. It's not like now you have to park at the car dealership next door.
Right.
Most of the time. And that's, if you're carrying a lot of groceries, that can be a problem, but they need
surely that's going to lighten up a little bit. I mean, they just opened. It's Christmas season, Thanksgiving season.
I don't know.
I
don't think it's going to slow down.
A little bit.
I don't think it's going to slow down until the Roy City one opens.
Maybe.
Because, I mean, but also it's a little bit cheaper. Uh-huh. It's a little bit cheaper. So, and you can't buy buttered tortillas anywhere else.
Oh, man, it's so good.
And it's so good. It's my favorite part of going to Rockwall. The only good thing about going to Rockwall these days.
We try not to.
The same. I think my wife is going tonight. So while we were talking about
time of year for that.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about kids, Australia, we have a clip here. So there's a running joke on the podcast, by the way, Mr. Money, that we constantly change the setup. So today's setup, you can actually see the clip there for you. And we should be able to hear it, but the people watching and listening will be able to see it on the monitor on the other side. So just kind of introduce this. Basically, Australia has banned social media for anyone under the age of 16. So let's roll the clip.
And by the way, we don't always have a clip for everything we talk about, but I thought to myself, if I can find an Aussie talking, I'm putting the clip on. So here's I don't know who this guy is.
Australia's social media ban is finally in effect, and the whole world is watching to see how it goes.
Australia's world first.
A world first.
The first and only country in the world
will spark a global movement.
So, here are the 5 things we've learned so far. 1, there's no official definition of social media, so the Australian government just had to make a list. Here's what they did include: And here's some stuff they didn't. 2. Under the title Social Media Ban, the Australian government writes, it's not a ban. It's a delay to having accounts. Basically, kids are still able to use these platforms so long as they don't log in. 3. If you're an Aussie kid and you're logged in right now, you're going straight to jail. Nah, just kidding. The government won't punish you or your parents or caregivers. Instead, social media companies could be fined up to 49.5 million Australian dollars if they don't take reasonable steps to keep kids from having accounts. 4. That is easier said than done. Social media companies have to figure out their own age verification systems, and kids are good at getting around them. Aussie parents say that kids as young as 13 are being age verified as 30 plus. 5. Will New Zealand copy Australia? Yeah, probably.
So by the end of next year, you hope to have under 16s banned from social media?
Yes, that's the plan.
So we've talked about this before on the podcast that, you know, we both have kids. I have a 18-year-old and a fixing to be 13-year-old. And the oldest one, we didn't let get social media until she turned 13. And even then it was during COVID. So it was like another way for her to communicate with her friends. I don't really have a problem with it being 16, but the question will be is will America follow suit? Right. So I always think of like when a certain state does something. So for as an example, we'll hop into this here in a minute too, but like with the cell phone bans in the schools, Virginia did it first. And so after Virginia did it, then Texas followed suit, not 18 months later, but pretty much within the next legislative session. It'll be interesting to see how the globe responds to this, how the rest of the world responds to something like this. And surprisingly, with the cell phone bans, it's gone very well. Mm-hmm. I don't think that a social media ban will go over very well, but I don't know.
You saw that pushback with TikTok,
yeah.
Right? Which was an outright getting rid of TikTok. So that was a little different, but we have one kid that has social. She's 17. She has Instagram.
Yeah.
We have a 14-year-old. She does not.
Yeah.
I think it's a broader topic that we are a political podcast. What changed politically and what put people against each other the way they are today politically is social media.
Yeah. We
make the joke that, you know, a lot of Trump's policies are just slightly to the right of Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm an avid watcher of The West Wing. It's a show that I watch just in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. I'm in season 6 of 7 right now, and when season 7 finishes, I'll start season 1 over. Okay. You know, I'm about my 5th time through it. And you see it and it kind of reminds me, I was in high school in the 90s, of a different political climate when there was a little more getting along. And now it's just, you know, so many things like we've talked about that, you know, Trump is for, or any Republican is for, like, you know, living in a red state. It seems like the opposition is against it just because they're enemies for it. Whereas it didn't used to be that way. And I think this ban will do nothing for that because it's kids only. But I think that has almost solely to do with social media. You see the rise. Facebook doesn't become Facebook unless the iPhone is created. Nobody's on Facebook like they are if they're having to log into a computer.
Right.
You see the iPhone in 2007, just as Bush is leaving office and Obama's coming in. And that's really when you start to see the shift, I think, politically, you know, in our country. That's my take on it. I've got no issue with it.
Yeah, I think the school ban, the school cell phone ban was interesting for me because one of several different legislators had that bill and you come up, hey, will you co-author this bill? Mm-hmm. And my initial gut reaction was like, well, what does the bill do? It says you can't have cell phones at school. Great, sure, signed on to it. And then I started thinking about it overnight, and I was like, wait a minute, is this the government's role? Mm-hmm. Like, should the government be doing this? Parents should be doing this. Mm-hmm. If parents don't do it, teachers should be doing it, and administrators and whatever. And then I went back and I was like, hey, I'm not sure. Like, I definitely am against kids having cell phones in school. I'd never let my kids have in school. If I was a teacher, I wouldn't allow my kids to have them in my classroom or whatever. But I'm struggling with this. And as we talked with more and more people, and this is sad, but everyone from parents to teachers to administrators wanted cell phones banned. Mm-hmm. They just didn't want to be the ones to do it. And I think that just shows it's a cowardice in our culture that we're afraid to do the right thing because of what blowback. Let's let somebody else far away do it.
Right.
And ultimately, I voted in favor of it. I think it's good policy. I just don't think it's the state's role to do that. So my kids don't have social media. Once they're 16, 17, 18, depends on you know, each kid. But they can start make their own decisions as they prove that they're able to make wise and prudent decisions that we give them. Then they get more and more leeway and liberty. But I think it's pretty clear social media is a tool that is good for us in some ways and very bad for us in other ways. And we need to learn how to use it.
Well, I think we can kind of hop into the politics stuff now. As a teacher, our school policy was no cell phones, right? That was our policy. The problem is just enforcing it, and then the legal fights that you ran into at times. And so, what's the outcome going to be when you are spending thousands of dollars trying to defend yourself? And like and in general, like I think you're exactly correct about what you said about passing the buck onto the state. But I will say, being able to say, oh, it's not just a school policy, this is a state law.
Right.
It definitely helps because there's now a backing behind that.
Yeah.
And so I think that generally speaking, I was telling Clint, I was like, generally speaking, I think I'll agree with just about everything that a Republican says. But at the same time, like sometimes I'm a little bit more to the left because it's like, okay, I agree. I don't want government intervention in most things either. But in this particular situation, as long as it's a limited reach, and I can get on board with it.
Yeah,
I didn't look at the roll call on that. How was that supported across the aisle?
It had broad bipartisan support.
Yeah, I can imagine that it would have too many like policy hurdles on either side for that.
Right.
It was presented that way in our district. My wife teaches in this district, and of course, having a high schooler, you get the emails at the beginning of the year, and that's how they presented it. It's like, hey, this is a state law, like completely falling back on that as their backing for doing it. And you do kind of have that thought. I mean, I'm not a school administrator, so I'll give them some benefit of the doubt. But you have that thought is like, you could have made this rule.
Yeah.
Like you can have a rule because you're going to have to enforce it anyway.
School boards are allowed to create policies.
Like the state troopers or whatever are not in classrooms making sure kids aren't using their phones. Whoever's enforcing, so the people enforcing the state law in this case is the school. Now, I don't know. Kyle, you said that it's pretty much gotten rid of it.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's not gotten rid of it, but it just gives you more support, I guess, in my view at this moment. Now, I'm also not married to the idea of it not changing eventually, and maybe there needs to be an adjustment. But in this moment, I think that it has to stop. Like it gives you more support, I guess, is my biggest thing. In an area where it's been a battle since I've been in school, like since I've been a teacher, and I've been teaching for 15 years. So, and it was only getting worse, and it didn't matter what policies you said or how many times you took it up or how many times, you could fine them or whatever. Different districts did different things, especially the ones I was working at. But for the most part, it's really gotten a lot better.
The school districts I've talked to since school began are like, man, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The lunchroom's allowed again.
Yeah.
Kids are actually talking to each other instead of staring at their phones. And the teachers say the classrooms are more calm, more attentive. So, I think ultimately it's good. And it's a hard thing in society that is the way it is. I have a very idealistic mind about the way things ought to be. But we have to govern in the world that is, not in the world that ought to be. And so, I wish that we lived in a world where parents policed their own kids a lot better. And
for sure.
But we live in a world where they don't. So how do we do that?
So how was your first year? That's kind of the jumping off point. Like this is your first, I guess, what is it called for a legislator in their first year? First session.
Yeah.
So it's not your rookie year?
Yeah, no, freshman year.
Freshman year.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
we're considered freshmen. So it's my first session. For people who don't know, Texas legislature meets every other year for 140 days. And so we meet from, I think it's the second Tuesday in January, and then we meet 140 days. And so I was elected last year, Republican primary in March, the general election in November. And then 2 months later, you're in Austin, you're making laws, and it's fast and furious. So, and I'm still the state rep until January of 2027 in my first term, but there's elections going on right now to replace those people. So it's the way it kind of works. You have a legislative year and an election year, and a legislative year and an election year. Anyway, but the first year, I think it went really well. I think I was able to find my groove and kind of figure out where I could be effective. I had a really good group of people, like-minded folks that joined me at the same time. There's a lot of change in Texas, this wave kind of movement, fueled by the Ken Paxton impeachment, fueled by school choice, fueled by frustration with the then Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan, and kind of created this wave of momentum for a lot of really solid Christian conservative Republicans to get in. And we came in together, we campaigned together, we worked hard to get to know each other throughout in between kind of the primary in March and November, December, when things kind of start gearing up for the session. So we knew each other pretty well. We trusted each other. And even though we didn't know what a state house representative did firsthand yet, we had some people who had been there before that helped us. And then we were able to get in and kind of figure things out pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So, with the Dade Phelan thing, there was also, this wave you're talking about, but then bringing in new speaker, Dustin Burrows.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back over the history of Texas speakers, if you're enough political nerd to want to go do that, forever, like up until the mid-'70s, you basically had a different speaker almost every session.
That's exactly right.
Changed a lot.
Sometimes several different speakers during a session.
Yeah. It's really like, and then after the 70s, which is, you kind of start having like multiple sessions with the same speaker. And Dade Phelan was speaker for 2 sessions. And so how has that been? Because I don't know if this is the right word to use, but I feel like there was the wave, kind of a change in a lot of representatives, a new speaker coming in, a lot of things said, the Ken Paxton impeachment. How was there somewhat of a healing process at the beginning? Like, okay, we're the ones that are here now. We need to work together. Or how does that kind of congeal together?
Yes and no. Let me back up just a little bit. I'm going to get a little nerdy, but I think it's interesting because you're clearly a very astute and learned man when it comes to Texas House. There's a little book called "Who Rules the Texas House," written by Kent Grusendorf, who was a state rep for a long time, and I read it, last year, and it pointed this same thing out. One speaker per term at most until about the 70s. And then people, as will often happen in politics, people go, and I would say during that time, the power rested with the members of the House, more so. Members of the House chose committee assignments, chose where bills were assigned, chose what bills moved through the committees, chose who the chairmen were, chose all these different things. And over time, they go, man, it'd be more convenient if one person did that. And so we always trade, liberty for convenience or security. And that's what happened. We'll let him do that. We'll let him do that. We'll let him do that. Well, eventually, this guy has a lot of power, when before it was just this administrative job that was really a burden that he didn't want to do. There's a lot of paperwork. And well, now he's presiding over, I can move any policy I want. I can stop any policy I want. And made the speaker very, very powerful. Well, then the lobbyists figure that out, and they start pouring money to the speaker instead of spreading it out to all these people. So now, instead of them trying to influence and convince 76 of 150, they just have to convince one guy. Yeah. It's just an enormous consolidation of power. And so a lot of us ran against Dade Phelan because, we felt like he was bad on policies, bad leader, made some horrible decisions. But But also we came out with a contract with Texas and with some reforms that we thought needed to be made just to diminish the power of the speaker. The speaker is too powerful. We need to give the power back to the members because the members are directly accountable to the people that they represent. I would say that our attempt to do that failed. I don't think we have any structural wins that we can point to. We did get rid of Dade Phelan, great success. We did, we as a group supported David Cook for speaker instead of Dustin Burrows. Dustin Burrows was elected with 29 Republicans and 52 Democrats or something like that. I mean, my numbers are a little bit off, but where it was, I don't remember. I don't remember the exact numbers, but far more Republicans voted for David Cook. Only a couple dozen or so voted for Dustin Burrows. It started, but Burrows won because almost all the Democrats voted for him. That started the whole session off on a really, really rocky place. There was no trust either direction. So, and trying to be gracious, we didn't trust them because they were the establishment and they violated caucus rules and didn't show up. I mean, so the caucus says we're going to show up, Republicans are going to decide who the speaker is, then we're all going to vote for the Republicans. They broke those rules. No trust. They didn't trust us because we were young whippersnappers who didn't know what we were doing. Two, we all met prior to the caucus to decide who we were going to vote for, and they felt like we were gaming the system, and we were. But there's a lack of. It was just like, well, if you're going to do something we don't like, we're going to do something you don't like, and there was just a huge standoff and friction. Coming right out of the speaker.
Hold on just a second. When you say we, are you referring to the freshmen that came in, or are you referring to the collection of
kind of collection of reform-minded representatives? Gotcha. Okay. So you kind of have people think about everything is Republican versus Democrat, but if only it were that easy. The Democrats have like 5 or 6 different factions. Republicans have multiple different factions, but I kind of divide the Republicans. There's a conservative, moderate divide, but there's also kind of an institutional versus insurgent divide. Some people are like, well, we need to keep it doing this way because it's the way we've always done it. And some people are like, no, we need to do something completely different. So kind of we have reform conservatives. You have moderate institutionalists, and you have Dustin Burrows, who probably is a conservative institutionalist. He really is conservative. He just is not reform minded, at least in the way that we wanted him to be. And so they did that. They rolled us on the rules. I'll get into that if you want, but really, rules are a package of how we're going to conduct business. And the establishment, the institutionalists just declared that these are the rules and really gave us no opportunity to amend them or change anything. Did us dirty, lied to us. And so, no, I would say it started out extremely hostile.
I got it.
Was that something you were expecting, or was it more you were expecting to come in as a group of young whippersnappers, as you say, and then kind of just fall in line? Were you expecting there to be more tension? I guess did it catch you off guard?
No, I think it's really interesting. I think we expected to win the speaker fight. We thought we had the numbers and we would go in and we would win, and that eventually they would say, yeah, we better vote with the Republicans, even if we don't like it. They thought we've always won. Everybody that comes in thinks that they're going to be a reformer, and everyone eventually capitulates.
Yeah.
And we didn't. So I think both sides were surprised that the other side did not cave. And then we had like 10 or 12 weeks of a Cold War. Where nothing is really happening on the floor of the House. Things are happening in committees, but nothing's happening. And then we did the budget, and they rolled us again. And it was kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? But then when you start getting into policy, the numbers shift in our favor.
Yeah.
Even the Republican establishment, speaker, institutionalists, whatever you want to call them, they do want to get conservative Republican priorities accomplished. Some of them because they believe in those policies, some of them because they know they have to win their primaries, whatever reasons it may be, but they're like, we can't go home empty-handed and not resolve some of these problems that our voters have expected us to do. And they know the Democrats are not going to help get LGBT stuff out of schools. Democrats are not going to secure our elections. Democrats are not going to secure our border. So they're looking at like, we need 76 votes. There's 88 Republicans and about 40 of them hate us. Yeah. So what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And at some point, to credit of both sides, I think, and to some people who positioned themselves in the middle to be a bridge, we started having conversations. And through that, we're able to develop what I would call a fragile trust, to start saying, how are we going to work together and make this happen? Yeah. And I can tell you some of those stories if you want, but I don't know. I don't want to just filibuster.
I enjoy the stories. I enjoy the background and the behind the scenes kind of stuff too, because what we're seeing from this side is not that, right?
Right.
Even though we're political nerds, so we kind of figured that there was some trust issues there, especially when nothing was getting done and there was some issues with the votes in the speaker, and then all of a sudden Dustin Burrows comes up. You could feel it, but if you weren't really paying attention, you probably wouldn't have had no idea.
It was extremely tense at times. I mean, hostile. Yeah. At times. It was now, and I will say, for the people who have been there a long time that are conservatives, it's been hostile all the time. Yeah. But when there were in the previous, I would say, handful of sessions, there was at any given time 2 to 5 people that were willing to like go to war with the speaker. Okay. That doesn't mean there were only 2 to 5 conservatives. There's a lot of people. And I think one of the things that I appreciate more, and I hope more people will appreciate, is everyone has a different temperament. Everyone can't be the kind of guy that spits nails and just, fights all the time. Yeah. Eventually things have to get done. And so you have different people that do different things. So there's a lot of really conservative people that are going to sit there and vote the right way. And they're going to go into the committees and ask good questions. And they're going to vote for good policy and against bad policy and do that. But you're not going to see them at the mic. You're not going to see them on Twitter. You're not going to see them, offering, really hot amendments or anything, but they're very valuable. But when the speaker knows I've got 2 to 5 people that might fight me, I don't need their votes. I just need to try to figure out how to make them not be loud and fight me on this. It's a lot different than for us. We had on any given day 15 to 25 easy votes against whatever the speaker was going to do. Yeah. There was never a time that we didn't have 15 people who were willing to challenge the speaker on anything. Right. And so that gave us leverage that the conservative insurgents have never had. I won't say never, but haven't in the past few sessions had that kind of leverage. To their credit, they recognized that and offered some olive branches to just come together and talk. And so we had conversations and what I figured out, and I won't say I'm the only one that figured out this, but I was having a conversation with one of the speaker's lieutenants, one of the top dogs, a powerful chairman. There were 3 of us and 3 chairmen in a room kind of trying to figure out how are we going to work together? Now, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this done? We need to get this policy done. And we said, hey, we are here because we care about policy. That's what we care about. If you pass good policy, we will give you credit for passing good policy. If you pass weak, hollowed out policy, we will rake you over the coals for passing weak, hollowed out policy. That's the bargain. Yeah. Now, in the past, they have felt like no matter what we do, the grassroots conservatives, the Republican Party is going to hate us no matter what we do. So we're not willing we're not willing to fight the Democrats because it's easier to compromise with the Democrats than it is with the Republicans. There's a quote from Frederick Bastiat in The Law, great little book about political philosophy, written in the, I think, maybe 1850s. I don't know, somewhere hundreds of years ago. And it basically says that people are inclined to avoid pain. And when it becomes less painful to plunder than to labor, they will plunder instead of labor. And one of the reps, I think Steve Toth, had given us all a copy of that, or the freshmen a copy of that, and I had read it. And about halfway through the session, I went back and started flipping through it again. And I said, you know what? We have to teach the speaker and his team that it is less painful to labor with us than to plunder us, because they're accustomed to plundering us and not really having any pain because of that. Yeah. But also us not being able to work with them either. And so I was talking with the speaker's team and the folks, and I said, hey, our group has credibility with the people outside the building, and we have no power inside the building. You have all the power inside the building and no credibility with the people outside the building. So no matter what you do in here, they're going to hate you unless we give you some of our credibility. And we're not going to give you any credibility unless you pass actual good policy. Yeah. And once again, to everyone's credit who's involved in those conversations, they said, we want good policy. Help us. Right. How can we do that? And so that's where we started to be able to do that. And we said, if you pass good policy, we will do press conferences with you saying, great job, good work. But you have to give us meaningful input into what that policy looks like. You can't run to the Democrats and ask them what you're allowed to get away with. Yeah. So that's what it came down to.
It's crazy. Texas politics is really fascinating to me because of that. What you just talked about, I think some people who are just more on the outside, maybe they live in Texas or maybe they don't live in Texas, and they just kind of think of what it must be like in the Texas legislature. I think they probably think it's just staunchly far to the right Republican across the board with everything. And it is not. It is so interesting because, like you say, you have 84 or 88 Republicans. 88 Republicans versus, and you only need 76.
That's right.
You would think that would work out to your favor most of the time, but it doesn't. No. And even, I was talking with a guy, we have some friends that live up in Kansas City, and they were down for the KC Cowboys game. And I was talking to him and I said, Texas, you would think just been Republican forever. I'm like, no, like with the governorship, except for Bill Clements, you didn't have a Republican governor of Texas until W, and then Rick Perry, and now Abbott. You just had three, except for Bill Clements. Yeah. And he served 2 non-consecutive terms. Other than that, all the way back, they've been Democratic governors of Texas. And I realize the Democratic Party's changed and things like that.
We've only had a Republican House for 20 years.
Something like that, yeah.
I think it's 2004 was the first.
That's correct.
First time. So
it's not how you might imagine, today. And I feel like a lot of times I call it the red pill of politics, from the kind of a Matrix reference, is that, like you said, there are a lot of people, and to their credit, they care about the policy. And they're there for the policy. And then there are a lot of people that know they have to vote a certain way and say certain things to get the funding they need to keep getting elected to stay in power. And there's two types of politicians. And I think the red pill, taking the red pill of politics and understanding that is knowing, like, there are people standing in front of microphones talking about policies, and they're saying those things so they can stay in power, not just because they actually fundamentally believe in that policy. And so when you see these types of games being played, it's like, well, no, we're here to make law, to make Texas better the way we see that it should be made better. But not everybody's there to play the same game.
Yeah. And some people, I will say this too, this is an aspect of, there are, you start counting, okay, how many conservatives do we have? How many liberals do we have? How many moderates do we have? How many whatever? It's really how many courageous people do we have too? That's extremely important, because how many people are really willing to get uncomfortable and fight for something that they believe in, even if they know they're going to lose, even if they know they're going to be screamed at, cussed out. If they're not going to get any of their stuff passed, they're not going to. I mean, that's where the rubber really meets the road. But courage is contagious, and the more courageous people you have, it gives cover to those other people I was talking about earlier that are conservative, that want to vote for the conservative policy, but they're not going to buck the speaker. But if 20 people are with them, I want to be with those 20.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden that 20 turns into 40. And now 40 is a lot. And so we were able to do a lot just like that. And you know, the coalition grows and builds. And even since the session and in, you know, the special sessions and even coming in, there are people who were on the fringes that are like, this is a group I want to be in, and that are, you know, like trying to move in and be more, they want to be associated and affiliated with kind of the reform group more so.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that, man. It's always so fascinating to me about how much more detail goes into it than that. Like, the common person doesn't have any idea how much work it takes to get any policy passed at all, little less the amount of bills that Texas passes every legislation.
Yeah,
and it just people just don't get it. And that's kind of leads us, we're going to kind of shift gears just a little bit, because I really want to know about, like, how did your family take this, right? Because you ran a tough campaign, right? You ran a Slayton got taken out of office and removed from office, and you ran against Jill Dutton, and she won the special election the first time, and then you had to run again when the session was the actual election. How did your family cope with that? How did your family, and how does that carry over into being both a dad and a husband in politics?
Sure. First of all, it starts with, my wife is on the same mission I'm on. So she gets it. Now, does she love it all the time? No. But when I first, I called one of the elders at my church when we decided I was going to run, and I said, hey, you know, I'm running. I want to run. I'm seeking support from the elders of the church. Kind of, do you believe this is a good thing? And should I do this? Seeking advice. And he said, does your wife have your back? And I was like, she's not at my back. She's at my side.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And he's like, good answer. And I'm like, yeah, but that's really the way I feel. And that's not the way I've been my whole life. A lot of times in my life, I found myself charging way out in front and then looking back and be like, come on, where are you? You know, that's not leadership. And so that's something I've grown in. I'm not saying I'm great at, but I've grown in as our marriage has matured. We've been married 25 and a half years. And so I think she's handling it better than she would have 10 years ago, and I'm handling it better than I would have 10 years ago, because we've been through things that have taught us how to work together. And so this is something that, in one way or another, we've been talking about our whole relationship. I mean, politics has always been a big part of my life, and not long after we got married, you know, we were friends with Dan Flynn, who was the state rep. He came in that 2004 or 2002, whatever it was, the kind of wave back then.
He was there for a long time too.
He was there for a long time. He was really conservative at the beginning. He became kind of a family friend. We would go down there and visit him in the Capitol. I was involved in Greenville city politics as a city attorney and city councilman. So we would go down there and through that, I kind of thought, you know, this might be something I want to do someday, because it's a citizen legislator. I've never really been interested in Congress or, you know, something in DC, but that was when I was like, man, this is interesting, and this is something our kids could be a part of, and it's something where, you know, you go down there part time, but 75% of the time you're back at home, running your job, going to your church, you know, sleeping in your own bed. And so it's something we had talked about for a long, long time. We homeschool our kids. I run my own business. And so it's less of a struggle for us than it would be for some people. Our youngest is 11 now. So they go with me to political events, not all of them sometimes, and sometimes I just take one or the other one, or and they're old enough now we can leave them at home, and my wife and I can go and come back.
Yeah.
But it really became like, okay, this is our family's mission. I feel like God has called me to do this. He's equipped me in ways that will be beneficial to the advancement of His kingdom here in Texas. And so my wife believes in that mission. We love to have the kids involved in it. They knocked doors with me. They stood at the polls with me. When we went down to Austin, we rented a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. Kids were down there with us, and they came and ran around the Capitol, and like they're part of it. Yeah. And I think that'll even be more so. Our oldest 2 have kind of left the nest mostly, and they're kind of gone. The younger 3 were with us the whole time. But next session, they're going to be like 16, 14, and 12. I mean, they'll be
that's kind of
with
cool.
me all the time.
Yeah,
it's great.
That's nice.
Well, and why you bring up your kids, and if you don't mind talking about it, Clint, and I have 3 kids. I said at the beginning, 18, almost 13, and 8. And Clint has a half of a baker's dozen over there. Yeah. And he has foster kids too. And I read somewhere that you have foster kids. Do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about that? Sure. Your thoughts on foster care and how that works?
Absolutely. And first of all, 3 kids is a great start. So congratulations.
I'll be honest with you. That was not the plan always. Yeah. Honestly, it wasn't. It was God's plan. We had originally, when we first got married, it sounds like we're kind of in the same wavelength here. I got married at very young, 18 and 19 years old. We were high school sweethearts. We've been married 20 plus years. And so the plan was always to have 4 kids. That was kind of always the plan. And then had our first one, and through some trials and the crash of 2008 and things like that, it took a little bit longer to get the next one. And then the third one came, and it was a very difficult pregnancy for everyone involved. And so we just decided no more after that.
Yeah.
But, for us, it's always been family first. We're both very, very involved in our churches, and we it's always fascinating to me when you see a politician that does have their kids with you, and that's something that I congratulate you on, because it's not easy.
Right.
The job of being a politician is not easy, and so just kind of expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So we got married at 20 and 21, had a couple of kids. I'm from a family of 2. She's from a family of 6. We figured we'd have 4. Split the difference. We had 2, and then a miscarriage, and then a harder miscarriage, and then a 3rd miscarriage. And we were like, wait a minute, like we need to do something. And so there were some medical things that were contributing to that. And so we had always, like when we were dating, we talked about adoption, but then, you get married and you kind of just start doing what married people do and having kids. And so my wife was like, hey, let's talk about adoption again. And I'm like, okay. And so we started praying through that and talking about it. And about that time we moved from the church I'd grown up in and gotten married in, and had our first couple of kids, and we moved the church, planted another church. We moved over there. And the new church had a lot of adopted kids. And so it was kind of part of the culture and the fiber of the church. And so we continue to have these kinds of conversations. And but we didn't know what is foreign adoption about? What is, agency adoption about? And kind of where are we going to come up with the money? And the Lord will provide, but we're not sure. And we went to some agencies and talked with them and did some things. And then I was at a Kiwanis Club lunch, and someone came and talked about fostering. And I left that. I went back to my office. I called my wife, and we talked for like 2 hours. And I was like, man, it seems like this could be what we're supposed to be doing. And before I left work that day, we got an email from our church that said, Monday night there will be a informational meeting about foster to adopt at such and such. So I was like, man, God's telling us something. So we went there. We're like, this is it. And we did the training. We started fostering. We ended up fostering, I think, 7 kids. We adopted 3. different kind of circumstances in each one. But so it's been a huge blessing for us. It is hard work. But I mean, kids are hard work. Marriage is hard work.
Yeah.
Work is hard work. Like, it's just a matter of, we believe that God called us to do it, and He'll equip you if He calls you. And so, I mean, our kids they're great. They're great kids. They're, they're family.
Yeah.
And so I would highly encourage, Christian families to look to adoption.
Mm-hmm.
It is a beautiful picture of God and salvation and what He does for us. The Bible, I mean, especially the New Testament, is full of kind of references to being adopted. And when you look at, okay, were we adopted because we deserve it? Mm-hmm. No. Were we adopted because, we earned it, or because we were better than? No. And I think for me, the most beautiful part of it was looking at, like, why am I God's child? Because He reckoned it. Like, He just made it so. Mm-hmm. And as particularly the first child that we adopted, Caroline, who's 15 now, we had to fight for her, to CPS and a whole bunch of mess. And it's like, when you have to contend for that and fight for your own child, there's just something that happens within you. And so, I just remember rocking her and be like, I reckoned her to be my child,
mm-hmm.
Right.
the same way, God did for us. And that's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And, so it's been great for our family.
Yeah. Yeah. We've went the same thing, foster to adopt, and we've adopted 3 of our 6, all at least half siblings biologically. So adopted one of our several foster placements down, and then biological mom a few years later had, we got a call. It's funny, you when you said, talking about going into politics, your wife was with you. I said it's kind of the same thing. Made me remember this. We had adopted our first, and then my wife actually got the call from CPS that said, if she had a brother, would you be interested? Which means she does, right? They're telling you, they just really can't tell you.
I mean,
random question of the day from CPS we haven't talked to. And my wife couldn't get me on the phone. I was at a business lunch, and I've got an Apple Watch and everything, but I swear the thing didn't ring or anything. And
right.
At the same time, my wife is 9 months pregnant. We're about to give birth to a biological child when she gets this phone call. And so I should have been answering my phone.
Right.
And so I'm at this business lunch, and I'm at a business. I don't want to be looking at my phone, right? I'm with some people, and I look at my phone. I got like 17 missed calls from my wife, and I'm thinking she's gone into labor.
Right.
I'm like, oh no. And so I call her. She doesn't answer. And so I checked the first voicemail she left, and she said, I'm not in labor, but I need to talk to you. And I'm like, well, then your heart really sinks. Like something's gone wrong, like, that kind of thing. And it was what had happened. CPS had called, and she told me that. And I was like, okay, so yeah, for sure. And she's like, well, I already told him yes, without even getting me on the phone.
Right, yeah.
And we tell that story, and part of our testimony is like, we were on the same page with that. So she was able to give that yes, knowing that I was right there with her, because we were on the same page when it comes to that. And then a year later, in 2020, our COVID baby, our last one, mom. This is the first one we found out about before she was born, but bio mom found my wife on Facebook and sent a Facebook message, said, I'm pregnant. I think I got about 6 weeks left. And so then that was on Mother's Day that she got that message
Happy
of
Mother's
2020,
Day.
And so then we actually had to wind up private adopting her, because CPS is, I'm sure we can share CPS stories, but CPS thought we had too many young kids, even though we hadn't hit the 6 number yet.
Right.
And my wife was getting upset, and we were in the hospital, and I just told the CPS lady, I said, listen, I know both the judges in this town. I was like, they love us. Like, we've fostered and we've adopted in this county forever.
Right.
Like, so you can call your supervisor all you want. And so we know some of the same people, but I called our adoption attorney, and she's amazing. And she had some paperwork on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Within 45 minutes, hour or so, went over to her office there in Greenville and picked it up and took it back and said, bye, CPS.
Yeah.
And we had to do that one private because CPS was being turds about it. But
we did our last one private, but it wasn't CPS's fault, but it was a kinship thing. And yeah. Anyway, it's just funny how the Lord knits a family together.
Yeah.
I don't have any foster kids, but I tell my kids that I teach all the time, especially as a coach, there are times in the year where I literally spend more time with them than I do my own family.
Yeah.
So they become my own foster kids, and I don't even want to put them in that same category, but they do become my own kids. It's just a whole, I had actually forgotten about that story, Clint. And now you say that, it makes it crazy, even more crazy, that story. Okay. Let's hop into some national politics. You good with that?
Okay, sure.
So we'll have a slide for this one. So the narco boats that were blowing up and coming out of Venezuela and in the Caribbean.
You don't need to put your ears in to hear it.
Yeah, they weren't really working, so I took them out. It was hard to hear, but I'll try.
I'll give it a little extra.
Going after narco terrorists and designated terrorist organizations in our own hemisphere. As I've said, and I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves and allowed them to come across the border. Cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations. And it's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco terrorists, and we're standing.
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%. And I don't know who the 9% is.
I'm not sure either,
but down 91% by sea.
We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations. This is meant to get after that approach. And I will just end by saying, as President Trump always has our back, we always have the back of our commanders who are making decisions in difficult situations, and we do in this case and all these strikes. They're making judgment calls and ensuring that they defend the American people. They've done the right things. We'll keep doing that, and we have their backs, Mr. President.
I have never liked a cabinet appointment more than Pete Hegseth. He is the best cabinet appointment that I know of in my lifetime. He doesn't do anything that I don't absolutely love.
I don't think you're going to find any disagreement in this room.
Oh my gosh.
When he was going through the process, we talked a lot about that. Like, man, I hope he makes it through, because when you want someone leading your warriors, he just seems like the type of guy you want doing that.
Oh, dude. So I'm not a big Fox News guy anymore. I just don't consume things that way. Yeah. So I'm not familiar with him through Fox News. I first was familiar with him through a book that he wrote, and then a subsequent podcast that I listened to about the book. And I don't remember the name of the book. It's terrible, but it's about education, the American education system. And I listened to him on this podcast, and I mean, like, he's a godly man, very, very like aligned with the way that I see the world. And then when he started getting, kind of, hey, he might be a cabinet appointment, and it was like, education? No. Right. No, he's a warrior. And so then I saw a Sean Ryan podcast he was on, which was fantastic. And then, government, people think the government is here to feed us and clothe us and give us housing and do all, healthcare and all these things. No, the government is here to be a terror to evildoers. And in order to do that, you have to have a military who is ready to go to war. And we should have a military that terrifies our enemies.
Yeah, for sure.
And by doing that brings peace.
Right.
Like, it's not because we want to go show how bad we are. You blow up a few narco-terrorist boats, and guess what? You don't have any more.
Right.
Like, so the book was The Battle for the American Mind.
Battle for the American Mind. That's exactly right. I'm terrible with remembering things like that. But great book about kind of the history of the American education system and where we went wrong. and it's fantastic. But yeah, love the guy.
Yes. Synthetic opioid deaths last year were over 48,000, and 88% of those are from fentanyl. And like, you just try to think, okay, if another country or another terrorist group or anything were killing over 40,000 Americans a year, what would that response need to look like? We've blown 25 boats out of the water. That seems pretty accurate to me. A pretty good response. And like you said, they're down 91%. Like, if you don't want to be driving a fast boat through the Caribbean right now, like,
Yeah, that's right.
It's, and I just think, like, the people who are complaining about it, my biggest pet peeve in the world for anything at all is, don't bring me a problem just without bringing a solution. Like, we can't just sit back and complain about something. Like, okay, what are you going to do about it? Because there's been a war on drugs ever since I could remember.
That's right.
I mean, I did all the things in school too, and got the little card and signed the pledge and did all the, all that kind of stuff. Like,
Defy it.
Defy it.
Yeah.
Yes. Still have
It
my
never
pink
worked.
Defy it card somewhere.
Like that. That's never worked. I mean,
It's a great reference.
Reagan's tried it. They've, and to me, what is everyone's big deal with blowing boats up out of the water when we've been sending the DEA and CIA down into South America for decades, killing whatever you want to call them, drug dealers down there on the ground. Now they have an issue with us killing them in their boats now. Like, I don't understand it. And I know you can't understand it.
Yeah.
Some of it is genuine. A lot of it is Trump does it so they don't like it.
Right.
But I love it.
I think really it's, I don't want to say Democrats, but people who are left leaning people just don't want to believe that there's evil in the world, and don't want to believe that it's the proper role of government to define what evil is and then to deter it.
Yeah.
They want, everybody needs a chance. Everything is relative. This moral relativism, secular humanist stuff has invaded it. And so somewhere under there's still the structure of a Christian nation that does believe that there's right and wrong, and it's the government's job to define right and wrong and to deter wrong. And to protect our borders.
Right.
That's the primary role of government is to protect its citizens from people outside its borders and from the bad guys inside its borders.
Right.
And really, if the government would focus just on that
Right.
only, we'd be in better shape.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Well, and I think too, the legislative, you guys did a great job this year of putting things on the docket to also close the border. Now, I know that did help with Trump taking office and things like that, but in the same breath, we see a huge drop off in just about every category that between immigration, illegal immigration, between drugs, and things of that nature. It just it's amazing to me how just such a simple policy of just close the border has changed so much. Thank you, by the way. I'm like freezing over here. Yeah. I'm like, trying not to shiver. But it's just amazing to me how something what would seem so simple would now all of a sudden be an issue whenever we're in the Caribbean or the Gulf of America or whatever you want to do,
Yeah, it's a fundamental disagreement, though, as to what the government should be doing.
Right.
And
Sure.
I hate to keep just bringing it back to that. Have you all heard of this? Is a kind of a newer concept to me over the past couple of years since I've started to be more into politics. I've gotten into more political theology and things like that. But have you ever heard of sphere sovereignty or Abraham Kuyper?
Abraham Kuyper, yeah.
So Abraham Kuyper was I believe, Dutch politician, pastor, theologian.
Yeah.
Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he wrote a book about sphere sovereignty. It basically said God created three different governments. He created the family government, the church government, and then the civil government. And each one of those governments has a sphere of influence, and they have a mission, and they have a hierarchy, and they have tools. And so the family has the mission is to provide. You provide for your wife and your children. You protect your wife and your children. There's a hierarchy with a husband at the head. church, you have your elders, and the church's responsibility is to take care of the widows and the orphans, the people without families, right? Because the families are going to take care of themselves. Then the church is going to take care of those that aren't. And what does the government do? The government is a terror to evildoers. That's what it is. The government is given a sword. So you don't want to feed somebody with a sword. You don't want to do healthcare with a sword.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to do, you don't want to do education with a sword. Like, that's not the role. And so so what you've seen over time throughout history, there was a time where people wanted the church to do everything. And so the church became this huge, big sphere and overran the state. And like, where the church is making, those, it's like, okay, well that wasn't good. And now we have this overcorrection where the state is huge and the church and the family are small.
Yeah.
And every problem in the world is to be solved by the state.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a big, big problem. And a lot of people think now that, I've been accused of being a Christian nationalist, and people say, well, you don't want a Christian in charge of the state, it'll be totalitarian. I would just submit to you that if we were a Christian nation, that sphere would be very small as to what they do. But one of the things it would do is punish the bad guys.
Yeah. Right.
That's the thing it would do.
Exactly,
it would punish the bad guys.
I hadn't thought about it like that. Like the spheres of influence are so dramatically out of whack at the moment. So
Way
dramatically
out of whack.
I think
And-
most of the problems you can find, I mean, we'll take it back to, I think one of the biggest problems with everybody, probably with you as well, when they talk about the foster care system, they're like, oh, the system's broken, the system's broken, the system's broken. You hear that all the time. I'm like, yeah, the reason it's broken is because the wrong people are doing it.
That's exactly right.
The government's trying to do this job that they were never meant to do.
Yeah.
If communities and families and churches took care of their communities, then that's what's meant to happen. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. But then, like you say, with the government, they have been given the sword, and so I'm much happier with, protecting and like Pete Hegseth was just talking about there, saying, hey, these guys, I bet you're probably pretty scared to get in a boat, head across the Caribbean right now. I know we keep saying that, and it is a funny thing, but like, that is something that is new that has been created, and I'm anxious to see, it'll still be sad, but I'm anxious to see the impact that it has on killing Americans in future years by this stance being taken on, how those numbers hopefully are coming down.
Yeah. I'm going to butcher this, but I think it was Will Rogers, but said, the reason that you hang a horse thief is not because you want to hang a horse thief. It's so that there won't be any horse thieves.
Yeah.
Like it's something along those lines. And I think it was Will Rogers. I could be wrong. But that's a basic idea is you should be a terror to evildoers so that they won't.
Right.
Yeah, I want to hop back into your idea about evilness. And when Charlie Kirk passed away with the terrible assassination, we both kind of came to the conclusion that the problem is that we can't recognize evil for what it is, and then also we won't be able to understand it. And so when we have these evil moments, and we're not going to talk a ton more national politics, but we've had a couple of them the last couple of days with Brown University, and then what happened in Hollywood with the what's his name, Rob Reiner, and we've had these evil events happen. What role is it? Is it the government's role? Do you believe that it's the church's role? Do you believe it's the individual city role? Like, how do we define what that looks like? Does that make sense?
As far as what?
Just like in evil, like with Charlie Kirk, like how do we as humans have a very difficult time wrapping our minds around what that looks like?
Yeah.
Because I can't even imagine that, right? And so when we're talking about things that are evil, what role does the government have, and how do we determine when it's evil and when it's not?
Well, let me start with
is my question.
Yeah, let me start with. I think you first have to start where does evil come from, because I think that the secular humanist worldview that is pervasive is that people are generally good, but bad things happen to them and sometimes turn them into bad, so that they are victims of their own circumstances. The Christian worldview is everyone is hopelessly evil. That's the default state of man. Every single man, except for the one perfect man, Jesus Christ. And that only by repenting and submitting to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ can we ever do anything good. And that is when society believes that, and then they look at evil in a different way. Of course that person is evil. They need Jesus. Yeah. They need to be taught what you're doing is evil. Your only way out is repentance, right? But when you're taught you're a good person, but something must have happened to you, it completely flips it over on their head. It makes them the victim. Yeah. And then we end up coddling the evil. Yeah. Instead, and then the good people who are saying, hey, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. Now you're the bad person for calling out evil. Right. It's completely flipped over. And so it needs to start in our homes and in our pulpits. It can't start with the government. Now, does the government have a place? Yes. If the government is going to punish evil, the government has to define what evil is. Sure. That is a proper role of government. It's what I'm doing in the legislature. We write laws. You can do this. You can't do this. You can do this, but you have to do these things first. I mean, and you know, every law is based on a system of morality and a value system that collectively the legislators and the governor agree on. And so what those people individually believe matter. But ultimately that comes, I think Andrew Breitbart said that, that politics is downstream from culture. But I would say also culture is downstream from the church. Sure. And so it needs to start in the pulpit. We need bold pastors who are saying, this is what the word of God says. Thus saith the Lord, over and over and over again, so that it pervades and shines light into our culture.
Yeah, I agree. You can't be looking to, and far too many people do this day and age, look to the government to define what that right and wrong is. Like that's not that role at any time, like we've talked about with foster care just now. Like anytime the government steps into that role without that backing from, like you can't have moral law from government without having a moral law giver. Yeah. Right. And so when you get that out of whack, then that's when you're going to have these things where it seems very wishy-washy and is it bad? Is it that? And then, like you say, pointing the finger to the person who's just sitting back saying, no, that's wrong. Right. And like, it's okay to sit back and call that wrong. Right. You know? Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, I need to come up with like a handy set of examples here, but all law is based on moral judgments. Yeah. How long should you have to be registered before you can vote? How long should you have to live in a place before you can register to vote? Should you have to be given notice before certain fines can be imposed? All those things are someone's sense of, well, is it right or wrong? And you're going to have people making those decisions, not government. Yeah. Right. Government is made up of people, whether they're bureaucrats or legislators or executives or whoever it is, judges, they're human beings. And so it really helps in a society if those people are all reading from the same lawgiver. And throughout our country's history, it has been Christians. Now, Christians can have some pretty spirited disagreements about what the word of God says, and that's okay. But at least starting from there is really helpful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like that answer. This is normally when we would take a puff of the cigar.
Okay. And contemplate.
Yeah, and kind of contemplate there for a second. But that's a great, I like that answer a lot. I like that. Yeah. And I like the moral argument. You know, my kind of specialty is more colloquial history and colonial history of the founding fathers and things of that nature. I wrote a master's thesis on it. And I've always argued that, you know, when you hear people say we are not a Christian nation, well, you could theoretically be kind of correct. But the morals are all in the Declaration of Independence. The morals of Christian morals are all in every single thing that the founding fathers did. Were they always in the right? No, because they're human. And so I really, really like that, how the morality of humans plays a role in that.
Talking about the role of government, we segue into tax reform.
Okay, sure.
I'm a CPA. Kyle's a history teacher. I'm a CPA, so we approach things from a different angle. My wife is a history teacher, and funny enough, teaches the content similar to Kyle's history. So content that he taught once before he graduated up to the high school.
Graduated to the
my wife is
level.
Still in the middle school and very good at it. So she says you don't pick middle school, it picks you. So, and
there's some facts in that too.
Yeah. But we're all about it. A couple things. So back to state politics and tax reform. Looking at property taxes is always I feel like it's probably the biggest when people talk about tax reform in Texas. Property taxes is obviously the biggest topic that people want. And it seems that when we've been giving money back to homeowners through their lowering their property taxes, it's been done through the homestead exemption. And I understand, and I'm interested in learning more about how the state's hands are tied a little bit in that, because, those are property tax rates that are set by tax levying agencies that are not in Austin, right? You have county, city, school districts that set those. The state can increase the homestead exemption, which they've done a couple of times now. As a property taxpayer, I'm thankful for that. But it does seem to directly harm schools, because schools are the only property tax subject to that homestead exemption. Like the homestead exemption doesn't lower the tax base for counties or cities for what they're collecting, or a hospital district or whatever it may be. And so by increasing that homestead exemption from 25 to 40 to 100, it reduces the tax base. And so painting that whole picture, in my town where I live, we passed a bond a couple of years ago, a big one, almost $1 billion, building a new middle school, new high school, and a lot of other projects. Huge, $986 million, I think, something like that. They've had to pause those projects. They paused the middle school, and then now they're looking at what they might do differently on the high school, which is it's more than 50% completed, because that tax base has been reduced so much by the homestead exemption. And so I guess my question is there an avenue for property tax relief that can come from Austin, come from the legislature, that doesn't disproportionately affect the school as a tax levying agency altogether?
Okay. Let me, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to back up just a little bit and try to build a pathway towards your answer. Okay. I think the first question, if somebody says, hey, I want to do something about my property taxes. Are you worried about how you're taxed or about how much you're taxed? Because that's two different things. The state has not changed how much you are taxed at all. The state has taken money out of your left pocket and put it in your right pocket and called it a tax, tax relief.
Right.
So just a big picture. The state no longer has any property tax. There is no state imposed property tax. Right. All of your property taxes are imposed locally. So your tax appraiser does not tax you. Your tax appraiser, the appraisal district, guesses how much your house is probably worth. And puts it there, and you can protest it or whatever, but I think your house is worth about this much. And then they take the people that you voted for, or that more likely you didn't vote for, because most people don't vote in local elections. They will look at that tax base, and they get to vote on a rate to multiply times that base to collect the amount of money they need to do all the things that they want to do as a government. And so this is true at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. it's always been true throughout history and always will be true without history. Taxation, every time the government spends money, it is going to have to tax somebody to pay for that.
Right.
Always. And so the problem is at the spending level, and the tax appraiser isn't spending the money, and the state is not spending the money at the local level. The local people are. The local people that are pretty easy to elect and pretty easy to vote out if you pay attention.
Yeah.
So pay attention. I disagree a little bit about what you're saying, and I would love to see the specifics. But what the state has done the past few years is buy down the school tax is complicated. Yes. And there are not very many people in the world that understand it. No, really. Like, I mean, there are not very many people in the world that understand it.
We'll get into it in just a second.
School finance is a fun topic. I was
told when I was down in Austin, I was said, I've been in city politics for a while, so I understand property taxes. And they're like, that makes you in a very small group of people that understand that. And I said, but I don't really understand school finance. And they're like, there's maybe 12 people in the state of Texas that understand it. And I kind of laughed, and they're like, it's probably 12, might be fewer than 12. Yeah. Most of the big CFOs and superintendents at the big districts cannot explain where their money comes from. So all that being said, in general, for your viewers or listeners, there is a M&O property. There's an M&O tax and an INS tax. M&O is maintenance and operations, the amount that it costs to run your school. And then INS, which is interest and sinking, which is the debt service, usually for facilities bonds.
Right.
It's two different tax rates. What the state has done in some cases is buy down with excess taxes that we collected from you at the state level. We're going to pay your property taxes. That's called property tax compression. Okay. So we're taking money out of your left pocket, which you paid in sales tax, to the state, and the state is going to pay your local property tax. The local property tax entity, which is the school district in this case, is not getting less money. They're just getting it from a different place. Right. Instead of coming from the citizens directly, it's coming from the people who buy things at stores to the state, and then the state has more money than it spends, and it buys down or pays part of your taxes for you. Okay. And then we have the other way that we have given some tax relief is by giving a homestead exemption, by saying, hey, instead of it used to be like $5,000, your first $5,000 of your house, you don't pay tax on. And then it went up to 40, and then it went up to 100. And now it's 140 for most people, but 200 for seniors or disabled. So your first $140,000, or the first $140,000 on my house, I do not pay any school taxes on. But that is not that the state, it is not that the school does not get that money. Once again, that is the state funding and paying for that part. And so this is right now, I think, a very interesting, it's not a battle yet, but a disagreement between the governor's property tax plan and the lieutenant governor's property tax plan. Governor Greg Abbott has a property tax plan. I don't have it in front of me, but it does several different things, but it's focused on ultimately eliminating the M&O taxes from schools. That doesn't mean the schools won't get it. It means the state will pay all the maintenance and operations for all the schools.
Which is the day-to-day.
Yeah. They're going to pay your teachers, your administrators, you're keeping your lights on, curriculum, technology, that kind of stuff, security. And the lieutenant governor, who wants to just continue increasing the homestead exemption. Yeah. The governor's plan, I think, is better, because what it also does is it creates some caps on spending. And it's not picking winners and losers. The lieutenant governor's plan is going to help people over 65, or he just dropped it to 55.
Yeah, double nickel.
The double nickel. And I saw somebody said
it's got to have a good name.
It's a 10-cent solution to an $87 billion problem. And I like the Lieutenant Governor. I'm not trying to make fun of his plan. And there's thoughtful reasons why that makes sense. People should be able to own their home without the fear that the government is going to take it away from them. And so if we can continue to make homestead exemption, the homestead completely exempt, great. But what that does when you do the 65 and over freeze, 55 and over freeze, and things like that, who pays property taxes? Everybody under that. All you're doing is squeezing the balloon, and the air has to go somewhere, and it's pushing out so that small businesses, homeowners. I mean, we have a real problem with people not being able to buy a home. The first-time home buyers are getting older and older and older and older. And we're not helping that when we're saying, well, let the youngsters pay more property taxes.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have it to pay. They can't afford a home to begin with. So I prefer the governor's plan that seems more holistic. It gets to some of the root causes of the problem, pays down. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of negotiation and consternation between now and when the session starts. But I would just say that's a very, very long-winded political answer. I hope some people learn some things. But in general, if you don't like your property tax bill, you need to be showing up to your school board meetings, showing up to your county commissioners meetings, showing up to your city council meetings, and seeing what they're spending money on. Yeah. In a lot of cases, people are going to go, oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, it's worth it. But sometimes, we're all super proud of these big, huge school buildings that we have. Yeah. I was educated in a metal building. Yeah. And did pretty well for myself. They're still being educated in those buildings. I think the carpet's still the same 30 years later. There's no marble. There's not, 2 different weight rooms. There wasn't even a weight room when I was there. I think they have one now, but there was just, it used to be that public school was families in a community coming together and figuring out the best way to educate their kids. Right. And now it seems like public school is a bunch of special interests trying to figure out how to make money off the taxpayers. Yeah. And the kids are kind of down on the level. And I admire, I was a high school teacher before I went to law school. I admire the people who are teachers. We need godly, awesome people there investing in these kids. They're our future and all of that. But we also need to recognize that there's a lot of people leeching off that system to the detriment of our students and with no regard for the taxpayers. Yeah, it is. When we started this podcast, I'll give 10 seconds on this and I'll clarify my comments. We talked about this for like 4 to 5 years before we did it. And one of the things we always talked about is there are avenues to see things on both sides. Mm-hmm. And it's not just one or the other. Like you're talking about with these school buildings. And there was a lot of pushback on that whenever we passed this bond, how big it was. And we talked about it on the last podcast, the high school that's being built. Like it's massive. I don't know if you've driven by it. It's huge. No. And these things look like, college campuses. And colleges have the same problem, by the way. But I know. Different. Right? Yeah. But it's like, it's very nice to put it mildly, and like you say, I did my, let's see, what years, my junior high years were in a metal building. And then I got to move into a brand new high school for all 4 of my high school years. But it was that school, which is the school my wife currently teaches now in middle school, was nothing compared to like what they're building today in these like corporate office looking buildings. So there's definitely a conversation to be had there about, and you talk with people outside of Texas, because we have so many people moving in here. The growth is so big. The housing prices are so good, which supports that property tax amounts that schools can bring in. And they don't have those nice corporate office looking schools because they don't have that type of revenue coming into the state with people moving into the state. And I feel like when people talk about Texas and they talk about our football stadiums and the jumbotrons and things like that, it's because Texas is doing so well financially
that the schools are kind of piggybacking and benefiting off of that growth.
Right.
So they're able to build those things.
But we're not seeing that translate to student achievement.
Right.
And so, in fact, there almost seems to be a reverse correlation between the amount of money you spend on education and the academic results that come out of it. And so, Greenville, where I'm from, just passed a $400 million school bond. And, from a standpoint of, how old our buildings are and their disrepair and stuff, that I get it. I was quiet about it during the session during the election, because I didn't think it was necessarily my place as a state rep to talk about it in the same way that I would have if I was a private citizen. And I think there's great arguments on both sides of things, but I would just say, let's assume the community has $400 million that it wants to spend on education. What is the best way to deploy that to make sure that our kids can read, do math, write proficiently, know their history, know their science? What's the best way to deploy that money? Is it to make sure that we have, 28-foot wide walkways between the halls? Is it that we have the best technology? Is it that we have, marble floors? Is it that we have, multiple basketball courts? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, I think you'd have more people excited about spending the money if they could directly see, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to shrink the class sizes. We're going to provide, more training for teachers. We're going to do whatever the case may be. When almost everybody knows should know that the best indicator of how well your kid does in school is not what that building looks like. And it's even, it matters what curriculum you use and what teachers there. But the main indicator about whether a kid learns or not is whether parents care. That's it. And when I taught, I was taught at Greenville High School, and I had some people ask me, can you tell the difference between kids, from different backgrounds and different that and whatever? And I said, I think you could. I don't think you could look at my grade book and see where the white kids are, the black kids, or the Hispanic kids. But I think you could look at my grade book and see how many have two parents at home, how many have one parent at home, how many have none. Mm-hmm. And so, we need to figure out that this is the solve. It's not bigger buildings, better buildings, whatever. The solve is, how do we get parents invested in the education of their children? And I don't say, I'm not saying I have an answer. I have thoughts that I'll probably keep to myself for now, but I think that the answer is, we need parents that are engaged in that. And we need schools that value the parents engaging in that. And I think most of the teachers and the administrators I talk to are like, man, we really wish we could get parents more involved. Of course. One of my favorite stories I went to Greenville Christian School, and all the way through, that's the metal building I'm talking about and all that. And so I went and started teaching at Greenville High School, and we had our first parent teacher night coming up. And I was like, okay, I have 140 students in my classes, and I need to be prepared for when they come in here. So how many handouts do you think?
Can I guess the number that
how
you
many,
gave out?
How many handouts did I print, first of all?
140.
280.
Oh, okay. Double. I got you.
Sure. I got, my mom and dad are going to be here. Yeah. How many did I hand out? 18.
Yeah. I'm not shocked.
And I was flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Just absolutely gobsmacked. 18 out of 140. And that included some moms and dads. Mm-hmm. It was probably, more like, 10 families. But I was like, how can people not care who's educating their children? How can they not, I won't say not care, not prioritize going and meeting the parents, the teachers? Because where I grew up, the school I went to, both parents showed up every time. And sometimes, if you have a divorce, you have 4 parents there, but there were a lot of parents there. And it was almost like, The problems you have is the parents who are too involved.
Yeah.
And I just had a hard time, unless the kid was failing and wasn't going to be eligible for sports. It was hard to figure out how to get parents to care that their kid was not even trying. Mm-hmm. We've got to figure out that problem. And the answer is not, we go back to the spheres. The answer is not for the government to continue to take on more and more and more of the parents' role and responsibility. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a government school system. That decision has been made long and long ago. I do think we need to be careful that we structure it in a way that continues to empower the parents and continues to recognize that parents are the primary educators of their children. They may choose to delegate that to specialists who have studied history or science in my case, or whatever the case may be. That's great. Hey, I can't do that. I'm entrusting you to do it, but it's still my responsibility. I mean, the plumbing at my house is my responsibility. I may hire a plumber to do it, but it's not the government's job.
Right.
It's the plumber's job. And so, I'm sorry, it's my responsibility and it's the plumber's job. Yeah. So I think the education system, we've got to get back to the parents. It's only going to succeed if the parents care and work to make it succeed.
Yeah.
Piggy, I want to go back to, because you have something about Bitcoin, but I want to piggyback onto the okay. I want to ask. There's a lot of how do I word this? When we went into session, there was a lot of talk about educational finance and things like that. We probably have a little bit better understanding through our podcast, obviously, and research of the M&O and INS finance.
And I've worked in public accounting and audited schools. Mm-hmm. So you kind of get in that and their bonding capacity and how that's tied to tax base and all that. Again, this is one of those things we could nerd out about where 80% of the listeners are like, let me go refill my drink.
It's probably more like what Trump said, that 9%. But my question is during the legislative, there was a lot of legislative session. There was a lot of things about teacher pay raises and things like that. I'm very appreciative that there was some, right? And there's the multi-tier question here. My first question is why was it ESA's first and then the public education second? I kind of understand what it was like for us on the outside when we were watching in, but why was it in that order specifically, I guess is my question.
Man, that was way above my pay grade. Okay. I mean, I was not involved in any of those discussions as to the why. So anything I would say would be just be speculation. I think, I mean, my guess is that it's everything with politics has to do with leverage.
Gotcha.
Like we're not going to give massive pay raises and do this to the public school if we don't pass this first. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what I guess.
That was kind of the perspective that we had here.
Now we did it the same day or the next day. I mean, It was like, it wasn't like we waited and spent a lot of, they were both lined up to go. But I'm pretty sure it was, we may have votes that we can get now that we won't be able to get if we've already passed the pay raises and the school funding. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. There were people who voted in favor of school choice that were not in favor of school choice. Mm-hmm. They now that doesn't mean that they were threatened or whatever, but it's just like, hey, we're going to take care of the thing you care about. We need your vote on this one first. And so, I guess that's why.
Okay. And that's kind of the optics that we got. And that's kind of the understanding that was kind of on the outside as well. My next question is
can I follow up on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick follow-up. So I may be reading too much into it, but it does sound like from our previous discussion about how the session started, if you've got people who are willing to do that, who are going to come in and vote and pass this one thing that they may be on the fence about or not completely care too much about, with a promise that their thing they care about is going to get passed, that does sound like some pretty good working together by that point. Or was that solely within just kind of the Republicans getting along with other Republicans?
I would say it this way. Like, there was never any question at all that the school finance package was going to pass. And I was one of 5 people that voted against the school finance package. Mm-hmm. So it was 140 something to 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So they didn't need anybody's vote on school finance.
Because you've got all the Democrats.
You got all the Democrats. Yeah. You've got all the Republicans. It was only the spending hawks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was 5 of us. I think 4 the first day and 5 when we voted the second time. That were against it, and it was spending hawks, and so very few people.
Okay, hold on. You got to expand on that name.
Yeah,
that's not I hadn't heard of that before. Spending hawks.
People who are concerned about government spending.
Okay.
Rand Paul in Kentucky.
Okay. Yeah.
He's like
Rand Paul, Thomas Massey.
He's the only senator that is that way.
There's very few people really look at it and go. I mean, most people look at it and go, "We got to support the schools."
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to vote against it no matter what. I voted to increase the teacher pay within the package that was brought. I said, you're not spending enough on teacher pay. I voted to. So just real quick, I promised 3 things on school finance when I was running. And none of them was, I guarantee that I'm going to vote for more money. Mm-hmm. But I said, I think teachers deserve more pay. I want a more simplified system, and I want more local control.
Yeah.
Okay. So I voted on amendments that would have given more teacher pay, that would have simplified the system, and that would have put more of the control of how the money was spent into the hands of the local school boards instead of into a formula that's in state law.
Mm-hmm.
All of those amendments failed. And at the end of that, you kind of have to decide, well, do I vote in favor of a bill that I think is moving us farther away from the kind of funding that we need? I know it's going to pass.
Yeah.
And frankly, I know that the politically smart thing to do is to vote for it. But I wanted to protest and say, no, I think this is the wrong way. I think we need to be putting money in the hands of our locals and in the hands of teachers, mm-hmm. not into all these different little buckets.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's why I voted against it.
I can't, and I told Clint, I don't like that you voted against it.
Yeah.
I don't like that. But again, you came on here and you gave a great explanation. I did read that you voted for those amendments, and I appreciate mm-hmm. that and the support. And quite frankly, the way that the school finance is done, I like the changes that they made. Honestly, I like that you described it as putting into different buckets instead of just an overall raise of the basic allotment. I frankly, I liked that, because then it puts the control into those specific areas of need that frankly it was needed.
And what I would say is, I'm not saying that I disagree with how it's divvied up. I disagree with a centralized approach to. I have school districts in my district that have less than 200 students, definitely less than 300. But I think I have a few that are less than 200.
Because Miller Grove is in your district, and I taught there for a little while.
Yeah,
the UIL numbers just came out. And
yeah.
They registered 79 kids at the high school.
Okay,
so it's going to be less than that. And then I believe, is Yanis in your school district too?
Part of it.
So that's going to fall in that same category.
Fruitvale, and I mean, there's some small ones. There's some small ones, but then you have these big, huge ones too.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of centralized planning where one person or a group of people in Austin is trying to figure out how Miller Grove can best spend its money, or Royce City ISD or whatever. I think the local people that see that, some of them are going to say, I think part of what we've said is, hey, you have to have a police officer at every campus. Good policy? Probably. Mm-hmm. But if there was a school district, let's just say, that's extremely rural, that, everybody knows everybody, most of the teachers are packing anyway, and they're just like, we would rather spend that amount of money because we have a really hard time hiring good teachers and we keep losing our good teachers, and we'd like to spend that money in this bucket instead. You can't. Hey, you have money for technology. Well, we don't use technology, or we have technology that's been donated from, this industry. And so we don't need that money there. We want to spend it over here. There's just less. I fundamentally, I think local control is better.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. I do have one other question. How do you explain when school districts are held accountable for the butts and seats kind of stuff, like attendance? How do you justify, like, we are competing, right? Districts compete. If you have nicer facilities, people will move to that community, which then will bring more butts to seats and things of that. So how do we fix that problem, I guess, is my question.
Man.
And I'm going back to what you said about the nice facilities. I mean, the school district that I work at is very nice. I mean, I saw you there touring it at least once, maybe twice. I know that, you know, the biggest school in your district is Sulphur Springs, I believe. Okay, Greenville. And okay, let's just talk about Greenville. Greenville needs new buildings, right?
The new high school was built, I think, in 1980.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 45 years old.
The middle school,
my dad's high school in the 60s, 50s.
And so how do we fix that problem? I guess is if we're looking for, if we're saying schools, you have to compete for the butts in the seats and that's how you receive more money. How do we fix the problem of, okay, this is what the building has to look like in order for people to even come in the door, right?
Yeah. I haven't fully worked this out. This is something I've been thinking on for a long, long time. But I would say these are the kinds of decisions that businesses and families make all the time when you have a specific amount of money and you have to decide how are you going to use that money. And some people are going to be more aggressive in some ways and some in other ways. So private schools have to decide, this is how much we can charge for tuition. This is how much we can get in donations. How much money do we want to spend on facilities? How much do we spend on teachers? How much do we want to spend on curriculum? How much do we want to spend on technology? How much we can spend on administration? And they have to make those difficult decisions. I think because they have a market pressure. Schools are easy for governments to spend money on because nobody wants to say no to the kids. And what we see happening over and over again is a community spends all of its money on the facilities and then looks to the state and says, we can't afford to pay our teachers. Please help us. Our teachers are underpaid. Like, okay, but you spent $1,000 a square foot on your building. Maybe some of that should have gone to the teachers, you know? And so I think government is never going to spend money the way that a business owner would. Yeah. It just won't. Milton Friedman says there's 4 kinds of money. There's my money that I spend on me, where I'm really worried about how much it costs and that I get what I want. Yeah. There's my money I spend on somebody else where I'm really worried about what it costs, but I'm not as worried about whether you get what you want. There's your money that you spend on me, which I'm going to get what I want, but I don't care how much it costs. Yeah. And there's the way government spends money, which is somebody else's money on somebody else. Yeah. Right. And, where you're not really worried about the cost or the value. And so we end up with a situation where I think the ultimate answer is we need to be able to say, this is how much money you get. There needs to be a formula that everybody can understand that this is how much money you get per student, per whatever. And that's how much you get. Spend it however you want. And if you spend it wisely, more people are going to want to come there. And the more people that come there, the more customers you get. Yeah. And if you spend it poorly, then you won't be. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, Greenville's putting all this money into new facilities, which once again, they need. If they don't fix the academic problems within the school district, they're never going to fill those buildings. Right. Because people are not going to choose to go there. And so then you're left with buildings you can't afford because there aren't people there that want it. Yeah. You build a huge restaurant with 6,000 square feet and hundreds of tables. And if the food's not good, nobody shows up and you bankrupt.
Right.
So
it's just hard to create. And I see the struggle with finding a solution here because it is hard to create a market. It's hard to create market pressure when you have government tax dollars as your revenue source. And I think that, what the state legislature and what Texas and a lot of other states have tried to do with things like ESAs and like with their school funding packages is create some of that in there, but there is not, and I don't think there ever will be, there's not going to be that perfect solution. You're going to be able to pick it apart.
Yeah.
You're trying to find something that works best as it can.
The best that I could come up with, and I think we're ways away from there, and there's gonna be problems before we can get to it, but is a true universal ESA where the state pays a certain amount per student. And whether you go to private school or whether you go to this public school or that public school or that public school, that's what you get. Mm-hmm. And you have to do things for special needs kids. And there's a lot of different variable factors and stuff like that. But that's the closest thing you could get, where you say the parent is going to direct what kind of education that kid gets. Totally up to the parents, but the state is going to pay for whatever they choose. Instead of right now, which is the state is going to pay for a system, and anybody that wants to make use of that system can have it. Yeah. Anyway, but that's philosophical. There's a lot of details that would have to be worked out to make that work.
That goes back to your parents being involved conversation.
You're right.
Because you're going to always have a lot of those kids that are just going to go to the school because they live close to that school, like kind of how it's set up now.
Yeah, sure.
And their parents aren't involved.
Yep.
And so that's where they're going to go. But if all the involved kids leave that school because it's underperforming and go somewhere else, then that school is kind of left hanging out to dry, but they still have kids to serve. And I know, like you're saying, these are all of the levels underneath that have to be figured out.
And I think what we need to look back and say, it hasn't always been this way. So there was a time when kids were educated and parents did care. Mm-hmm. and so the questions we should be asking are, how do we get back to that? Right. I think that, a lot of teachers that I've talked to have said, well, even if you gave parents more options, most parents either don't care or don't know how to afford themselves with those options. Well, then that's the problem we need to solve. Mm-hmm. Like, we need to figure out how to solve that problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem. And I know when you're just trying to do a lesson plan and show up and teach and capture their attention for 50 minutes and hope that they retain some of it tomorrow, like it's a lot. And the teachers aren't the ones that should be trying to figure that out. Yeah. But the policymakers and the lawmakers and the administrators and the school boards need to figure out, how do we engage those parents? Because what we have done for the past 100 years has eroded parent involvement. It has not improved parent involvement.
Sure.
And so what are the things that we have done that have had the unintended consequence of telling parents, we got this, you don't have to worry about it?
Well, I think from a teacher perspective, some of the bills that y'all passed will help. So
HB6, the discipline bill.
The discipline bill is we're already seeing a difference now at my school.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge discipline problem with some of the things we did. The local policies we already had. Mm-hmm. But the HB6, that definitely is a game changer. Mm-hmm. And I don't really have a question, just more of a statement. Like, I see the direction that you're talking about. Like, I see that's the direction that it's going. Will it be 10 years from now? Will it be 20 years from now? Will it be 30 years from now? Or will we ever get to the true ESAs? I'm not exactly sure. But I see that's a direction that we are going. So I often wonder, how long is the system that we have even sustainable, right? With the changes in ESAs and private schools, will a place like a Miller Grove even exist? Mm-hmm. Because is it sustainable, right? And
man, I sure hope so, because I think if you look, the smaller schools are probably the ones that are performing the best. And I don't even know, I'm not even talking about accountability systems. I hate the accountability system.
Same.
I mean, the accountability system needs to go. Are
you talking about the A through F one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, really, ultimately, and this goes back to my local control situation. And I'll try to get to your point, but we don't need the government to tell us which school is good or bad or medium. Whether it's A through F, 1 through 6, excellent, needs improvement, whatever it is, because a school system that performs at a D might still be educating 60% of the kids really well.
Yeah.
And 40% not well. And one that's A might be handling 98% of the kids well, but 2% not well. Mm-hmm. And all that matters to me is whether they're helping my kid. And your kid and my kid might be in the same class in the same school, and it's working for yours and not mine. And it's not my fault, your fault, the teacher's fault, the administrator's fault, the building's fault. It just isn't. And so who is it? Somebody in Austin looking at a tabulation of a bunch of different factors that says, well, then that's a C- school. Yeah. It's not the school's fault. Once again, show me the demographics of a school district or the parents of a school. How many of them are married? I mean, we could go into income and education level and two, but really just how many of them are the student has parents who are still married to each other. Mm-hmm. That is a good school district. It just is.
Yeah.
And so
I want to rebuttal you, but I can't. Like, I'm literally trying to think of a way to, but you're not wrong.
And I'm not saying every kid who has two parents at home is doing great, or that every kid who's from a broken home is doing poorly. I'm just saying demographically,
and
when you look statistically across, so are we punishing the school because that community has more divorced people or more children out of wedlock? Why is it the school's fault? Why is that school underperforming? They may have the best teachers, the best curriculum, the best administrators. They're starting with a more difficult student population. Mm-hmm. And so I would just say, from an accountability standpoint, the best accountability is involved parents who have options. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I can decide which Tex-Mex restaurant in town is best for me, and you can decide which one's best for you, and you can decide which one's best from you. And we don't need the government to sort out which one is correct.
Right.
Because we all may have different reasons. I may have a kid who's a super athlete, and this is the best school for them. Not just the best athletic school, but that's where they fit in. That's where they connect. It's where they're engaged with their students, whatever. You may have a kid that's a band kid, and they're better off over there. You may have a kid that doesn't want to be involved in any of those kinds of things, just wants small class sizes. And the big schools with the big football program and the big band are not good for that kid. Well, who's to say that yours isn't an A for you and mine's not an A for me and yours not an A for you? Like it, but if we all switched our kids to the other school, it's like, well, that's a D school for my kid.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Are you still on that same topic?
Yeah.
Okay. You got follow-ups.
Yeah. Well, not really follow-ups. I appreciate the clarity, right? And I appreciate the honesty. I don't completely agree with everything that you've just said, but
oh man,
it's okay.
I don't know that I do. I just sometimes I talk and I haven't thought it all the way through.
No, but that's how you get to know someone, right? Because like whenever again, when we started this podcast, the whole idea was somebody opened that door.
Yeah.
The whole idea was that we would be able to have middle of the road conversations, and that we always weren't going to agree with what it was going to look like, right? And we've actually had several people give us feedback of like, "Hey, you guys need to disagree more." Well, if you argued or if you said something, fun, whatever, you would get bigger ratings. Well, that's not. This is about having a conversation about what we believe to be correct.
Right.
And 99% of the stuff you've said, I completely agree with. There's just, some things I don't, and it's okay. My next question, or just kind of follow up to all those things is we've had this conversation that if it didn't get done in education, this past legislation, that it probably wasn't going to be brought up in the next one. Is there conversations being had at the moment about adjusting even more funding, or is there more conversations coming about education?
So I will say, I mean, this was the education session. I mean, we tried our best to hit everything we could, from funding, parental rights, star testing, discipline, getting rid of, some of the ideologies that were harmful in our schools. Have we fixed it all? No.
Just to be clear, I do know what the difference between a girl's bathroom and a boy's bathroom is, thanks to the state's training.
There we go. There you go. We have. So have we fixed it? No. Education is going to continue to be over half of the state's budget, and that is going to continue to mean that we are going to look and see, how is that money being spent? Is it being spent wisely? Can it be spent better? The biggest, most important thing that most people care about on, from the state government are going to be education related things. So I think we've made a lot of progress. I think we're going to always evaluate. Okay, did that fix it? Well, did it make it worse? Is it better? We're just now starting the HSA application process. I think I saw something that I haven't even looked, but that's beginning. We don't know how many people are going to sign up.
Oh, the ESAs.
That's HSA.
I was like, wait, hold on.
ESAs.
Y'all are going to give us a health savings account too?
Yes, I'm glad
Breaking news on the Cigar Politico.
I'm glad you were listening. No, the education savings accounts, we have seen, we funded $1 billion. That should cover about 100,000 kids. Could be more or less depending on how many are special needs, how many are homeschooled, blah, blah, blah. But about 100,000 kids. If 200,000 kids sign up, then there's going to be immense pressure to make sure that we fund it.
Yeah.
And I certainly hope that we would. If 30,000 kids sign up, then we're going to have to look and say, well, is this something that there's even a demand for? Is this something that, we're going to look at it. I think there's going to be tremendous demand.
Yeah.
And I think, and I encourage anyone, who is thinking about, homeschooling, thinking about private schooling, things like that. Start the process and let me know how it goes. But I think there's, I don't think we're going to have a session where teachers go, man, we are paid plenty. And please don't give us any more.
Yeah.
We've got this. So I think there's always going to be pressure on that. Retired teachers are going to say, hey, cost of living's going up. We need a cost of living increase. There's always going to be those pressures to provide more money.
Sure.
And one other thing, and then we can move on. The TIA, I will say, as a person who has received that payout, that's a huge benefit.
Congratulations.
So yeah, and it's not easy to get.
Is it teacher incentive allotment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so both my wife and I qualified for it.
Y'all, he's being humble.
He's one of these teachers that's rolling in the dough over there.
For anybody that's watching, what that means is he's a very good teacher.
Yes.
He's done an excellent job, and a program has been put in place to ensure that there's merit pay. When I was teaching, I started teaching in 2001. Newlywed, making $31,000 a year, I think. And if you stayed there until the next year, it was going to be $32,000.
Yeah.
If you stayed there till the next year, it was going to be 33. And if you stayed there for 8 years, it was going to be like 38.
And then it's capped at 10.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I was like, well, what if you're really good? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
How long have you been here is all that matters. Yeah. So I think it was very, there's some things the state has done I like, things I don't like. But I think one of the things that and I think this is, the governor and Mike Morath, the TEA guy who mixed reviews from a lot of people, but have said, hey, we need a way to reward the teachers that are really good so that they can make a career out of this. What I saw is you have an outstanding classroom teacher that can't make a living wage, so they go be an administrator, and they're not very good at administrating. But We took them out of something they're really good at and put them in something where they can make money. That's dumb.
And I like the 4-tier system. I don't know if you were a part of that. They've moved it from 3 to 4, which makes it not easier, but a little more achievable in certain categories. But that is working.
Okay, good.
As a person who is pretty involved in our district, it wasn't easy for the district to get it off the ground. I will say that. Just because it wasn't super clear, but that's it's just like with any political thing. That's kind of how it always works. But yeah, I wanted to say those things complimentary before we move on to the next topic. So I kind of want to talk a little bit more, not necessarily education. If the conversation brings us back, we can always go back to that. I'm always game for talking about education.
All right.
But I want to talk about AI data centers in your district.
Okay.
You're
trying to get me in trouble.
No, I'm not trying to get you in trouble because I did see I just want to kind of know your opinion about it.
Sure.
I know that Sulphur Springs there was some, I don't want to talk about the controversy. I don't care about none of that stuff. We're not a pop entertainment, and he probably doesn't even know what we're talking.
I don't.
So I taught at Sulphur Springs for a little while too, and so I'm still pretty well connected with some people out there, and I don't care about that. But my question is first off, is that something that's on the state's radar? Is the massive data centers?
Yeah. So let me. Big picture, America needs data centers and many, many, many of them. If we don't, China will, and China will own AI.
Yeah. And
we don't want a communist country owning AI. It's bad for everybody. So we have to, if we're going to continue to be a world superpower, if we're going to have freedom of information, we need data centers. So that's just like, I had a guy call me who's huge into tech. He called me from Beijing and he was like, hey, I know you got some stuff going on in Sulphur Springs. I don't know everything, over there, but I'm over here, AI in China does not acknowledge the millions of people killed by communism. You can't find anything about Tiananmen Square. You can't, there's just we have to have AI in America. And so, so that's one. Number two, we do not have nearly enough power to power AI. Not even close. We have, it's 85. We have, Texas produces 85 gigawatts of power. And we have, I think 225 gigawatts requested to come online. Where's that?
Hold on. Repeat that again.
So I think currently to power the state of Texas is 85 gigawatts. We have 225 new requests for gigawatts worth of power. So, triple what we currently have. And most of that is data centers. And you cannot power that with solar and wind, not with any kind of current solar and wind technology. So meanwhile, China is just building coal powered plants like crazy, right? We're going to lose economically every possible way. If we do not get the power we need so we can do the data centers. Now, the reason it's on the state's radar is because we cannot be powering data centers and not your house. We cannot be powering data centers and not hospitals. And the thing is, these power companies that are generating power love data centers because it's stable power. It's base load power. It's I know that if I build a power plant and I have a contract with this data center, then I'm always going to need power.
Yeah.
Where if I build a power plant, let's say here, in Roy City, then, how many people are going to move here?
Right.
How hot is it going to be? How cold is it going to be?
Yeah.
Are they going to have a refrigerator? Are they going to have gas power or electric power? It's really hard. So the power companies love a big factory that sucks power, or a big data center that sucks power. That's great for them. But what we have to do as a state is make sure that we're not neglecting the power that we need to just operate society in return for the power that we also need to power data centers. So that's where the policy fight's going to be.
Yeah. Ever since Snowmageddon, Icemageddon, whatever you want to call it, that's always been is the grid going to hold up this year? And
Right.
like, guys, it was
people
one.
usually never used
asked
to worry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
But ever since that happened, and then so there's been news stories. We have a clip. We don't have to play it though, but there's been news stories and all these video clips about, Texas is in danger because they're building all these AI data centers, and they have, everybody wants to talk smack about our electrical grid. So it's good to hear that government is overseeing that, and ERCOT or whoever it is looking over that and saying, no, we can't bring these online until we know that base level is taken care of.
Yeah. And this is not one of the bills that I dug into real deeply, but I think there was a Senate Bill 6 that was directly focused on that, making sure that if you are bringing on power for a data center, that they're, how that has to be done to ensure that it's not taking away power that is needed other places.
Yeah.
That's that is going to be the wave of the future, is how are we going to get power? And not only will it be military power that in my opinion that is the forefront of the global economy, but it'll also be where we can get power from.
Right.
And again, this is a kind of off of that, but I wish we could build nuclear power plants. I mean, I wish that was something I wish that was something that you could put up rather quickly. I know that Elon is looking at that outside of Waco. They're looking at some of those too.
So I think we're going to see a lot more nuclear power. There was a number of bills and funds put together in this last legislative session toward that. Nuclear power is extremely clean, extremely efficient, and very, very safe. And so we're going to see a lot more of that.
I have a question about that. So I know there's public pushback on nuclear power because you have Three Rivers and all these stories about power plants that melt down and destroy communities, right? Mm-hmm. That's the one or two times that's happened here that gets a lot of pushback. Is the regulation hurdle, is that more on the state level or federal level? Meaning that if Texas decided in the next session, we're going to build a nuclear power plant here, we're going to build 2 of them, we're going to build 3 of them, could Texas just say we're going to do it and they do it? Or is there a lot of federal red tape that's going to shut that down?
The short answer is I don't know. The slightly longer answer is I'm sure that the feds have their fingers in it somehow, because they do in natural gas plants. They do the EPA is going to do something. Yeah. The EPA is going to be involved. So, but the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, the Railroad Commission, all those commissions that Texas has will have the local jurisdiction over it.
Yeah. Something to get done while Trump's in office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of one thing I like about Texas is it's kind of like, the national climate on this particular issue may be this, but we're Texas.
Yeah. I wish it was more so the case. I think we need to be bolder in some areas and tell the feds to pound sand.
Yeah.
But
it's a very Texan spirit thing.
But we haven't done that very often. Not enough for my liking.
Like, listen, our capital is taller than theirs. Okay?
That's right. That's right.
Come on.
Do you have anything else with that? I'm kind of good with that.
I love Texas. I'm all riled up now.
Yeah, I know you are. He's about to step on it. You're about to see what's about to happen. I also want to kind of talk about your committees that you were on. You were on the Texas House Agriculture and Lands Livestock Committee. What kind of interest did you have in that, or was this just kind of, hey, this is the freshman bone that you get? How does that all kind of work?
The way that committees work, I talked about the speaker a little bit earlier. The process for picking committees is you list 3 priorities committees that you want, your preferences. Mm-hmm. And then you have 3 seniority picks. So freshman, I've got low seniority. So what they do there is there's a certain number of on the whole, someone has a big board somewhere of all the committees and all the people who sit on it. And the people with the highest seniority get to pick first. Mm-hmm. And so, and each committee has a certain number of seniority picks and a certain number of speaker picks. And so all the people who've been there a long time are on state affairs, appropriations. They fill up the big important committees. So I didn't even try to get that. Like, there's not going to be any seniority picks for me. So I put, and I think this was a seniority pick. Seniority pick for me. I had ag and livestock on mine, and on the other one, and it may have been flipped, but the other one was criminal jurisprudence. Okay. And then the people that are in good graces with the speaker, when he tries to put everybody in their preference.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not in the good graces with the speaker. So if I had picked three really prime committees that everybody wants to be on, I would not have gotten any of them. So I looked and was like, okay, I'm going to look at they're kind of set in tiers as far as desirability. I looked only at the bottom tier committees and said, which ones of those would I like to get? Mm-hmm. And I chose ag and livestock because I'm from an agricultural district. And so I don't currently live on a farm. I have some family involvement, but I'm in no way like some sort of expert on agriculture and livestock. But it's important to my district, so I thought I can contribute in that way. And then I chose criminal jurisprudence. I was like, as we've talked about before, it's a core role of government is to define right and wrong and punish the bad guys. So give me that one. Mm-hmm. That's how I ended up on those committees. They're not committees that really you can raise money off of, or that you can, really campaign on much. It's not the big sexy issues. Yeah. It's not big issues, but I learned a ton, especially on the ag and livestock. I was able to learn a lot, and I have a lot left to learn, because we have a real problem in our country with agriculture and livestock. We used to be an agrarian economy. We industrialized, but now we are almost anti-agrarian. Like we make it extremely difficult for people to make a living. And that is in large part due to government policy and due to just monopolies that have developed, that are just crushing the farmer. And so, and we better fix that, because if we have to get all of our food from other places, that puts us in a pretty precarious situation.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think right now we are at a 75-year low in America on the number of cattle that we have.
Wow.
And that's just based on, it's not lesser demand for beef. It's fewer people producing beef. Mm-hmm. And we have the New World screwworm making its way up through Mexico. If it makes it here to Texas, and it probably will next year, but we have, that will infect our cattle, and we'll have more cattle that have to be put down and that can't be used, and make it less profitable to have cattle. And it's a real problem.
Is the state doing anything about that?
I would not say we're doing nothing. So yes, we are doing something. So I'll say, it really is primarily a federal government problem. And
Gotcha.
Thank goodness we have Donald J. Trump and Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, who is a Texan.
Yeah.
Her mother serves with me in the state house. Brooke Rollins has been a political operative, and think tank leader here in Texas forever, big agricultural background. And she has made it her top priority to deal with screwworm. And so I could get into that. I was in like an 8-hour hearing 2 weeks ago. I don't think anybody wants to hear about it, but I will say you'll be better off if you don't ever hear about it, because it will it's a parasite that gets into any wound of any animal, and it's deadly. Mm-hmm. And so, it affects pets, it affects livestock, it affects wildlife. So deer hunters and any of that kind of stuff. It's a real big problem. We eradicated it in the 60s, sent it all back down to South America, put up kind of a barrier at the Panama Canal to keep it all in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's breached and gotten through that and up to Mexico. And we're trying to push it back down. It's a problem.
Is it along the same lines as chronic waste disease?
I don't know as much about chronic waste disease, but no, this is in flies.
Ah, okay.
And so, yeah.
So I'm a deer hunter. Well, I haven't had time to deer hunt as much as I would love to deer hunt, but we have some family land in Wisconsin, and so that's a big deal up there right now.
Right.
Chronic waste, and it doesn't seem to deter the people from eating the deer meat. But I'm assuming that the screwworm will.
Yeah.
Or does it just kill them off before you can even get into the process?
The problem is, it contaminates all of that. I'm sure that there's going to be, that there are rules, and I don't know about all of the rules about what happens, with the meat. Can you just cut out that wound part and still process the meat? I don't know. I doubt it. But either way, if you've got a live cow and it's got a big gaping wound that's being eaten by worms, you got to do something.
Yeah.
It's not really treatable in that way, and it's just going to go to the next cow and the next cow and the next cow. So it creates a big problem.
Yeah. Who knew? You got anything else on that one?
Nope.
The THC debate.
Speaking of things,
Speaking of things,
governor disagrees with leadership on. So,
and this has kind of changed since we sent you the run sheet. Actually, it was today or yesterday.
He signed it a couple hours ago.
Trump signed. I can't even read my notes.
But that won't change the legality argument of it. And Trump did sign an executive order a couple hours ago to change marijuana to a Schedule 3 narcotic, meaning that it was Schedule 1, which Schedule 1 says there's no medical use for it.
Right.
Which is not necessarily the case. Again, this is where we say things like this. We're not doctors.
Right.
We're not
But
experts.
now Schedule 3 is still regulated. I mean, ketamine's a Schedule 3 drug also, but says there can be medical use for it. Apparently opens the door for research to be able to be done.
Right.
But as far as legality goes, you had a strong disagreement between Abbott saying no kids and then let adults be adults kind of thing, versus on as far as like low levels of THC, not full blown marijuana. Whereas Ken Paxton seemed to be more of just across the board complete
It was mainly
ban.
Dan Patrick that wanted a complete ban, and I'm more in the Patrick camp, and I'll tell you why. And I'm just hearing about this right now, but generally speaking, I think that Schedule 1 was not the right place for THC. There are clearly medical uses for it. The problem is when we opened up, when I say we, previous Texas state legislatures opened up hemp farming. Hemp has a lot of uses. CBD has a lot of uses that are not intoxicating. They're not, it's not, you have CBD it's not intoxicating. I guess the best way to say it. And so we opened that up and said, but it has to be 0.3% THC or less. So basically just only trace amounts of THC. Well, the problem is there's no way to test trace amounts in the field. It's extremely difficult or impossible. And so they use, and it's kind of unclear how to measure it and a bunch of like percent of what and things like this. And so it created a massive gaping loophole for people to start selling THC products. CBD will help you sleep. CBD will help you focus. CBD will help you with pain. THC gets you high. And they had things that, 90% of the product is THC, but, and like what, like it was, throughout the state, there's all kinds of quote legal products. They're not legal. They're illegal. They're federally illegal. They're illegal to the state, but they're being sold in legal means. And they are being marketed to kids. There's no question. They're in the packaging and all of that kind of stuff. And so, I was of the mindset you cannot regulate that. I think the things that are highly the things that are synthetic, the things that are highly potent, that are concentrated THC, those kinds of things. I think you just ban them. Is there a place to say that, it shouldn't be in the same category as, fentanyl or something in category 1. It should be somewhere else because there are medical uses for it. I think that's appropriate. But I think that regulating it is basically saying, keep doing what you're doing. I don't that it doesn't create a real ban on it at all.
Yeah. So one of the criticisms I saw, one of Abbott's criticisms, these are not his words, I don't think. It was a news story that said that the reason Governor Abbott opposed the outright ban is because he said you don't want to turn farmers into felons.
Right.
And so is that most of what his stance is that he's still trying to find a way where we can still do this and it can still be under the legal amount so we can continue this industry? Or is it just like we can't measure it? And so if we can't measure it, and then we can't go forward with that plan.
I don't want to question what his motives are in that. I know they're, and so I won't. I would say reasonable people can disagree on that. And so this is not an issue that I'm so well versed and so certain that I'm right that I really want to get a lot of it into it. It was not in my top 10 legislative priorities one way or another. Yeah. The bill came across and we had an opportunity to ban or to regulate, and I chose to ban because I've seen the harm that it has done to people, not just statistically, but anecdotally, people that I know. And I do think that I don't think there's a realistic way to limit it to only, responsible adults making wise decisions.
Do you see this as something coming up in the next session, or do you think it got tossed around, vetoed, tossed back around?
I think, it's kind of funny. So the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, said, I want it completely banned. I think the governor was kind of quiet on it. It came over to the House. There were people in the House that changed it to regulation in committee. Then on the House floor, we changed it back to a ban. It went to the governor. He vetoed it, which was kind of a surprise, I think. And then it never came back because the governor and lieutenant governor could not come to some sort of an agreement. And neither one of them wanted to. The lieutenant governor doesn't want to bring something that he knows is going to get vetoed. Yeah. And there's no way to, it's not going to override the veto. And it was just going to, what they call cut people up. It makes everybody take hard votes. Yeah. And I've told you, it's a hard vote for me because I won't say that I know so much about it that I'm just really well versed on it. So I think the status quo is going to stay until the lieutenant governor and the governor can agree on how to move forward.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thoughts on endorsements coming up for the statewide elections in 2026? You can opt out, of course,
sure.
as any of you want.
I'll tell you.
This is kind of his wheelhouse, not mine. So I'll pass the buck to Clint.
Yeah, I like elections, and I start paying attention to them way before election day comes up.
Sure.
So you got, of course, Texas AG.
Yep.
That's a big one. Then comptroller, and then on the federal side, you have Cornyn's got a couple challengers. So I don't know any of those that you want to dive into. And also, there's been a shakeup with redistricting and on the Democrat side, trying to figure out what directions they're going to go on the congressional federal rep side. So I don't know what ideas, opinions you have.
I'll just take them. Attorney General, honestly, I think we have three good choices out of the four. Senator Huffman is far more moderate than I would like in an attorney general, and particularly on, I'm not for her. When Mays Middleton, I think, is the first one out of the group that announced, I saw him that day. I endorsed him that day. He is a staunch conservative, has been a fighter in the Texas Senate for all the things that I believe in for 6 or 8 years, however long he's been there. He's been a friend to me. I've worked with him on legislation, and I think he'd be great. After that, Aaron Wrights got in, who I don't really know, but Paxton endorsed him, which should carry a lot of weight. He talks very tough and talks very eloquently about a lot of things that I believe in. I think he doesn't have, he's never held elected office. And I think until you're the one that actually has to call the shots, you don't really know how a person is going to react. And so having someone go from never being elected to something as powerful as the Texas Attorney General, I have a little bit of concern about.
Sure.
But man, he's saying all the right things.
Yeah.
So your mileage may vary. That's where I see that. Chip Roy, I have loved forever. I love Chip Roy.
Yeah.
Now, do I agree with everything? No.
Sure.
One of the things I love about Chip Roy is that he has always been willing. He's incredibly smart. All three of these men are smart. But he is brilliant, genius level smart. The things he says are very thoughtful. And he has taken very, very difficult positions on things that he believes strongly in. And sometimes that gets you in trouble. And so, there's things that he said about President Trump or about this or about that are going to get him in trouble. But man, it's not because he went off half cocked. It's not because, ask him a hard question and you're going to get a tough answer.
Yeah.
But at the end, you're going to go, okay, he's thought about that.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. And I think he has the backbone and the intelligence and the experience to do very, very well in that role. But man, we're fortunate in Texas to have three men like that running for a position as important as that. I think it will come down to Middleton and Chip Roy.
Yep.
Aaron, nobody's really started spending money yet, so you don't know for sure. But Middleton has more money than everybody else. Chip Roy has more name recognition than everybody else. I think the two of them will end up in a runoff. I'm certainly going to be watching that really closely because like I said, I have a tremendous amount of respect for both of them. Then comptroller, it's Don Huffines. We don't even need to talk about anybody else. It's Don Huffines. It needs to be Don Huffines. If you want somebody to doge Texas, if you want somebody to, have a businessman who doesn't need the money, who goes in and just looks and says, how can we do this more efficiently? I can't imagine anybody better than Don Huffines to do that. I think he's the best option by far, and I think he's going to win easily. So, love Don Huffines.
We live in a Huffines community.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
Right
Yeah,
here.
I drove on Huffines.
That's
Huffines owns a lot of land also in Quinlan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's from Greenville.
Yeah.
Like he grew up in Greenville, went to Greenville schools as a kid. And so I've been able to meet him a few times. Really one of the most genuine people you've ever met. Here's a guy who, I don't know if he's a billionaire or not. He's super rich.
Right.
But he and his wife homeschooled their kids, just the most down to earth. When you talk with them, you feel like they really care about you, like just no self-importance whatsoever. And I just really believe that he has the best interests of Texas at heart, and he has the skill set needed to do that job extremely well. So that's Huffines all the way.
Is there a third in that race?
Yeah, there's Christy Craddock and Kelly Hancock.
The former state senator.
Yeah, former state senator.
He's the acting right
Kelly
now.
Hancock.
Yeah.
He's acting deputy, whatever it is that he is, because the governor's not allowed to appoint a senator to the job, so they appointed him to the deputy of the job, and then didn't appoint the regular, so that he's running. It's whatever. Kelly Hancock was a liberal senator, Republican senator.
So probably runoff with Craddock and Huffines. Yeah, or you think Huffines gets 50 right off the bat?
I don't know, and I haven't seen the polling in it. My guess would be that it's going to end up being Hancock and Huffines if it goes to a runoff, I guess. because Hancock does have the governor's endorsement. And he'll have a lot of money. But Huffines should win that. Everybody needs to vote for Huffines.
Yeah.
And then Paxton is going to be our next senator. I think that's inevitable. He should have kept his marriage in line. He would be walking away with it at this point. I think that's tempered some of the enthusiasm that he had coming out of the impeachment stuff. He was riding really high. It's disappointing, but still the best man for the job.
Yeah.
And I think he'll win it.
It'll
be a runoff, but he'll win it.
Yeah. My take, and comment if you want, on Wesley Hunt getting into the race is Wesley Hunt forces this to a Cornyn-Paxton runoff. And if there is a Cornyn-Paxton runoff, Paxton wins hands down because of the type of voter you get in a runoff versus in a primary.
Yeah.
Versus if in a primary,
no Cornyn voter is crawling over glass to vote for John Cornyn. Like there's just the Cornyn voters, the guys that show up and go, oh yeah, I've seen his commercial.
That's what I mean. Like in a regular primary election, I think that Cornyn has a shot.
Yeah.
If it's just Cornyn and Paxton and that's it to get to the 50 plus.
But I do think Wesley Hunt is in it to win it. But what I think is going to happen, I don't think anybody put him up to it because I've heard people say, but I think he really thinks he has a path. I think what's going to happen is the last week before, Cornyn and Paxton are going to turn their guns at him because Cornyn is going to look and say, I have to beat him to get into a runoff. Mm-hmm. And Paxton is going to look at him and say, I'd rather be in a runoff with Cornyn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're both going to just hammer Wesley Hunt with everything they have. And that's going to push his numbers down. And you're going to end up with Paxton and Cornyn. But I think Hunt is a very impressive candidate. I like him. He doesn't have quite the skins on the wall and those kinds of things. But very impressive guy, and I hope he sticks around and stays relevant because there's something good for him.
I hope he doesn't pull too much from Paxton because if you think about it, somebody who is a Paxton voter over Cornyn could look at a Wesley Hunt and say, well, there's a guy who just didn't get divorced.
Yeah.
Like if that's something that factors into their equation. But I do think maybe this gets him some statewide recognition. He's been... we watched the podcast and the shows. He's been on Bill Maher.
Oh, he was great on Bill Maher.
Yeah. And, he's very well spoken. Like I say, I hope he's got a bright future.
So the Twitch has a couple of takes on this. First off, the Twitch says Wesley Hunt lacks the baggage as a candidate, though. So that's kind of
the impeachment.
Lacks the baggage.
Yeah, lacks the baggage.
Yeah. Everybody has baggage. He has some baggage about some things he said about Trump and I think he hasn't been a consistent Republican voter. He's kind of new. There's some things that aren't perfect about him, but there's a lot to like there.
Yep. Texas House races with federal House races in Texas with the shakeup and the redistricting. We kind of had a thought about the direction that was going to be going. And then when the filing deadline showed up, all of a sudden Colin Allred's out and he's running back for, that seat. Then all of a sudden now we're going to get Jasmine Crockett in a Senate race. And I don't know what to think about that.
I have a question
there's
about
a certain point where I really enjoy this and I pay attention to it and I pay really, and when she announced, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I'm like, I don't want to watch that race. Please, James Tallarico, beat her in the primary. So, which is not going to happen with name recognition, right? That's not going to happen. Like he's out. But.
I don't want him to win. He scares me.
No, I meant
no. I'm saying
in general,
he is silver tongued.
Yeah.
He is a very effective communicator of ideas that I find extremely troublesome.
Yeah.
And so now I don't think that he's well, anyway, I'd love to have maybe you should invite him on the podcast. Let me and him talk with each other for a while. I think I don't like how he wraps his Marxism in a Christianity cloth.
Yes, yeah. That's my chief complaint with him.
And he abuses the scripture to promote a political ideology that is antithetical to Christianity. He is through that deceived a lot of Christians. And I have a real problem with him, but he's very, very good at it. And I think he could sway a lot of undecided middle of the road voters in a way that Jasmine Crockett can't.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Have you ever met him?
Oh yeah.
Tellerico, you bet.
Yeah. Super nice guy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think he's being genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's a false prophet.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't think he's pretending to be nice. I think he's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
But his ideology is extremely dangerous.
Yeah. Do you think if Tellerico were to win the primary and it's him against Paxton, you get another repeat of Cruz 6 years ago where you had with Beto got within a handful of points?
I think it could be.
You think there's more of a chance of Tellerico's that opponent rather than Jasmine Crockett?
Now, I will say too, I mean, Tellerico has all of the baggage that every other Democrat has. I mean, I'm sure I'm not looking at his record, but he's voted against every good gun bill. He's voted against every, he's voted against keeping boys out of girls' sports. He's voted against the women's bathroom bill. He's a standard run-of-the-mill Democrat.
Right.
He's just a very effective communicator and makes it seem like that if you're a Christian, you should be listening to, his Marxism.
Yeah. And I feel like Robert Francis O'Rourke had some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. He did it. He didn't do it coming from I'm a pastor guy.
Right.
He did it coming from I'm just a super cool guy who likes to cuss guy.
Yeah.
But he was a very
your guns.
Yeah, and take your guns. But he was an effective communicator as well.
Right.
But yeah, I think that white liberals and just easily deceived people who are not real political listen to what he has to say and say, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Well, we should love our neighbor."
Well,
right, but you love your neighbor with truth and righteousness and goodness and what the Bible says, not what he says.
Well, and I think too, going back to what we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast with social media, he makes great clips.
Oh, he makes such great clips. He's fantastic.
And I've told Clint this before. I think the only thing that I agree with him on is parts of his education, but that's the absolute only thing I can even agree with him.
You should be questioning yourself.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Well, and the thing is too, is you watch his clips and you're like, okay, I'm going to do a little more research on this guy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what I was saying. Like, you watch his clips and I'm like,
but if you don't do the research, then you may vote.
That's where I was going with that is like, you look at that and you're like, oh man.
I would say this, just blanket. Anybody that only talks about the second tablet of the 10 Commandments and calls himself a Christian, they don't talk about you shall have no other God before me. They don't talk about any of the things of that. When they say that the greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself, no, that is not what Jesus said. Jesus said the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Mm-hmm. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. You cannot love your neighbor. And then he says loving your neighbor is access to women having access to abortions. Yeah. That is not love.
Right.
Telling a man that you can be married to another man is not love. It's wickedness. It's an abomination. That is not love. Love is telling them the truth, that sin is going to separate them from a holy and righteous God for eternity, and that God loves them and wants to help them. That's love. And so you can't, God is love. The Bible says God is love. So if he is love, he gets to define what love is. And love isn't what makes us feel good. Mm-hmm. That's not love. And so in the James Tallarico version of love. It's, I don't tell you anything you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not loving.
Yeah.
And so we need to reject that. Christian people with discernment should be rejecting that loudly. And I'm concerned about people on my social media that I know in my own personal life that are like, man, I finally hear somebody that's saying things that I was like, man, you should be running from that because he is not preaching the gospel.
Yeah. It's been a couple months since I looked, so maybe this has been corrected, and maybe I was just looking in the wrong spot. I went to his website and I tried to find his platform, and it wasn't there. Like, it had information about him, had information about where to like do fundraising, how to send money. But you go to a lot of candidates' websites, not all of them, but you go to a lot of them. It's kind of like, this is what's important to me. This is what I stand for. And he didn't have that. And I thought that was really a telling thing.
He is, and you can tell by his voice cadence, he's an Obama disciple. He has clearly watched what made Obama successful. And Obama was very vague and flowery. And that's where Tallarico really shines, is in vague and flowery language, and he's really good at it. But he's dangerous.
I've got, I'm in a new district now. So I'm in 32.
All right.
Which used to be a Democrat district. I'm assuming, looking at this thing, it's not going to be.
No, it's 70-something% Republican now.
So 32 used to be Julie Johnson. She's moving over to 33. 32 should go solid Republican. There's the 33 that Julie Johnson's jumping into. I think Colin Allred, which he is, where's he running again? Because I know
30.
I think it's 30. I think you're right. Yeah. And then Freddie Haynes, pastor of Friendship West, is running also in 30, which is Jasmine Crockett's. I mean, it didn't used to look that way.
No.
But it's her former seat. So
in 32, I'll just tell you, half of Hunt County, not my half. I live in the northern half, but half of Hunt County and all of Rockwall County is in 32. And I am endorsing J.C. Yarbrough. Fantastic guy.
There's like 6 or 7 running.
I think
so
there's
far.
more than that.
Yeah.
There might be. Anyway, some people got in and dropped out. Yeah. So I don't know exactly. J.C. Yarbrough is a constitutional lawyer, solid Christian Catholic guy, great family. And I mean, he's been fighting for, as a constitutional lawyer, for all of the things that we care most about.
Okay.
And so he's whip smart, able to communicate that well. He has the courage of his convictions. He's going to fight for it. And so I've known him for a while and wholeheartedly endorse him. I'm sure there's other good people in there. So if I'm not, if you have a better candidate that you like better, that's fine. I just want people to know why I'm supporting Jace.
No, that's good to know. Yeah, we'll see. That's going to be it's a packed primary on that one.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I'm mostly just glad Katrina Pearson isn't running for it, because she's been a huge ally.
She's my state rep
and friend
for this area. So.
And a lot of people thought she was going to jump into that.
I saw some of that chatter.
And so, anyway, glad she's staying to help us save Texas.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see. We have joked, we a few episodes ago, probably 5 or 6 episodes ago, we had the way too early look at the midterms. And so I had my map up here and kind of where I thought the Senate was going to go. And I just said, I just can't tell you what I think the House is going to do because of the maps being drawn, not only in Texas, but other states. And so I'm going to enjoy the process leading up to it, but I'm also going to enjoy the postmortem after.
Yeah.
To say
I hope so.
California made some moves, Texas made some moves. We have some other states are making some moves. What was the actual product that came out of that?
And a lot of that is I think it's going to be, where's the economy? It's always the economy. Where's the economy? So have all of these policies and executive orders that Trump has put in place and the big, beautiful bill, are they paying dividends so that people can see in their wallets?
Yeah.
And then also how much of the executive order policies and the things that were promised with the Trump presidency are going to be enacted into law by the Congress, because if they don't start doing some, I think that you're going to have a lot of disaffected Trump voters who just don't show up.
Yep. I agree 100% on that. I like Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid, you know, but the The only problem with the big beautiful bill is that it fixed it before it broke. And so as a CPA, I try to tell people, like, listen, like, if it did not pass, all of these things that we're going to sunset would have increased your tax bill. We talked about it on the podcast because numbers on a podcast are always super engaging.
Right. Yeah.
But I tried to keep it really high level and just say, hey, yeah, just his family, total income in the house, 120,000. We went down the numbers of how much, their tax bill was going to almost triple based on the provisions that were sunsetting if the big beautiful bill didn't pass. So it's kind of like one of those things where they did not get the pain, but it's like the things it fixed were completely necessary to put money just back in regular working people's folks.
But
pockets.
I expect, like we've talked about, the interest rates are going to go down. Mm-hmm. People are going to hopefully be able to start affording houses again, and buying power will go up. And when interest rates go down, businesses will start investing capital and building things and hiring people. And that's the kind of thing that's going to work.
Yep. Let's hope it gets there fast enough.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, wrapping up, are you done Christmas shopping?
Man, I'd have to ask my wife. So I have this great deal that my wife and I have kind of passively worked out over the years, where she comes up with all the great ideas, executes on them, wraps them, and my contribution is to make sure that the credit card works when she buys it, and then to be just as surprised as the person opening it.
Nice.
So, and it's really fun because she'll ask me, like, we talk about it. Hey, do you think this would be good for this person? Do you think this would be good for this person? Yeah, that'd be great. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. But then I don't remember, and I get to, I get to be just as surprised as the person opening.
Yeah, we have the same arrangement. She has done everything. There's a stack of them on the coffee table right now, and she's a teacher, right? So tomorrow's the last day of school. So right now they're piling up in our bedroom, and then she'll get them all wrapped. And I literally, my only contribution was just, like you say, making sure the credit card was there.
Yeah. My wife has been wrapping presents, for the past couple of weeks. I think we're going to do a little bit of shopping together tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I think, but I don't even know who's left. I don't know. It's really a great deal because buying Christmas presents for a lot of people is hard. Yeah. I don't want to diminish it, but it would be impossible for me. She's really good at thinking what people would like and coming up with good ideas and that kind of stuff. It would be easy if it fell to me because nobody would get anything.
Yeah.
Gift cards. That's what they'd get from me.
Yeah.
Gift cards, 100%.
Yeah. Well, and my oldest is getting to the point where that's what she asks for.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So it's like, okay, well, that's not very fun. So I have come up with a couple of ideas, but this will come out before Christmas. But we always run out of towels in our house. Like, we could have a stack this tall of clean towels, and yet they're always gone. And so,
first world problems, Kyle.
Right. I know. I realize that sounds dumb. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like I'm constantly washing towels, and everybody's getting towels for Christmas.
Everybody's getting towels.
Yeah.
Well, our church does they like to give every student who comes on the last Wednesday night before Christmas a gift. And so that's just kind of the big thing. We have a lot of kids who come and they want to give every one of them a gift. And so I was talking to our youth pastor, and he was like, listen, it's great if you go get actual gifts for us to put under the tree. But we don't know if a boy or girl is going to be grabbing this thing. We don't know how many boys, how many girls, how many junior high, how many high school. Gift cards go a long way. And so if you just want to go get me a bunch of $10 gift cards to a restaurant or whatever it may be, then
that's right.
Then that goes a long way. So we do the gift card thing too. Our big kids, we do a shopping spree with them after Christmas. So we'll get them a couple things here. But then our three big ones, we take them to a mall, we make it a family event, and we let them just have money and go buy what they want with them. And everybody, we have a rule. We have to stay together. It's not like we disperse. So everybody gets to go shop and, have the fun and the excitement with their sibling. And then, we'll go ice skating or see a movie or Dave and Buster's or something like that. So they always look forward to that. The little kids want their shopping spree, but they're not quite old enough for me to hand them money and them keep track of that. And so, but I'm excited for some stuff we're getting them.
We're going to do some experiences. So again, my kids listen to this and they're probably listening right now. So I'm not going to kind of spoil the gift, but one of them is going to be very, very, very excited, and I'm interested to see how that falls out. But I'll tell you guys after we get off of the air. But we appreciate you guys. I appreciate you coming. I do have a gift for you.
Awesome.
This is by a local teacher. She makes us our
awesome
our gear, and there's a T-shirt for you.
Thank you so much.
Wear it on the house floor when you give one of those speeches. And give us a shout out. So we appreciate you coming.
All right.
We started this about a year and a half ago, and neither one of us ever even envisioned that it would be to the ability of having a Texas State Representative on it. So we appreciate you coming.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to do it. It's been an engaging conversation. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right.
Exciting.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.